Okay, good morning, Commissioner Ed Rothstein. It's Thursday, March 16th. I do have a question. Isn't there like a Ides of March or something?
That was
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
You were.
What is that? I know
Well-
there's Ides of March. Does anybody know?
the-
Julius Caesar. That was the day that he was assassinated. He was warned about going to the Senate on the Ides of March because he was going to be assassinated. Then he got assassinated.
And that was Et tu, Brute?
I'm sorry?
Right.
That was Brutus.
Right.
Right. Okay, got it.
Right.
Okay, that's my history lesson for today. With that said,
always
why don't we
yesterday.
start off with Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Well, besides the Ides of March and St. Patty's Day tomorrow, we are bracketed with good things happening on March 16th. I'm looking forward to Mr. Fowler talking about what's happening in Annapolis. So, but until that happens, why don't we go around with Priority Carol? Commissioner Vigliotti, what's on your mind?
Thank you, Commissioner Rothstein. The many things that I have done over the past week, I'll sum it up with three of them, which I thought were pretty cool. So over the weekend, I had the opportunity to attend the New Windsor Fire and Hose Company No. 1 75th Anniversary Banquet. That was an incredible evening. Director Mike Robinson was also there, as was Deputy Kevin McGinnis, who is assigned to that area. And in this picture here, you can see Chief Robinson administering the oath to the members of the department. It was a really, really fun evening. It was a really good time, and they were really, really good people. They were talking about the number of service calls. There's Deputy McGinnis and Mayor Neil Roop as well. Some of these members of the department responded to hundreds of calls last year, like individually to hundreds of calls. So it really is a phenomenal fire department. I also had the opportunity this week of going over to the Sheriff's Department for Leadership Carol's visit to law enforcement static displays. And among the pretty cool things I got to do was to see the inside of the mobile command center for the county. And it is incredible how really is a mobile command center. They're able to do everything from communications to printing to coordination. It really is an awesome attribute. In addition to that, I also attended the grand reopening of the Kemar Tire Outlet in Kemar, and there you can see us cutting the ribbon along with Chamber of Commerce and gentleman Justin Ward, who runs the place. It's a really awesome little business, and when I say little, I don't mean little. I mean that it's independently owned, and where it is, kind of in the middle of nowhere, it like fills this niche because to get your tires done or get something fixed, you have to go to Frederick or Tawnytown or to Westminster, and so this place is like perfectly situated to help locals and help farmers. So it really has been a phenomenal week so far, and I'm looking forward to everything else that comes. And tonight, along with potentially Commissioner Rothstein, be attending the Maryland Municipal League quarterly chapter dinner in Tawnytown. And that's it from me.
Sounds good. Commissioner Gordon.
Thank you. First and foremost, wanted to congratulate the Boys and Girls Club of Westminster on a wonderful achievement. They've now finalized a plan they've been working on for some time, and they're now renaming themselves the Boys and Girls Club of Carroll County. I think we'll be patiently watching this reality take place, that we will be seeing a number of locations spring up over the next few years across the county. Under the leadership of Sean Davis, I think we are going to see some significant and very vibrant, impressive improvements in our community, and very thankful we have them for the children and the youth in the community. So kudos to them, and I'm glad to have been a portion of that as a former board member. This week I attended a tour of the soil and conservation offices and got a little more detail onto the process of what the soil conservation offices do for Carroll County, and I greatly appreciate that from them and their staff. Last night I was at the community college board meeting, and very exciting. The 30th anniversary of Carroll Community College is coming up quite quickly, and there will be a number of events they'll be hosting for that, and I think that's going to be very impressive. And as always, our community college is a cornerstone of our community, and really appreciate all the work they do both educationally and economically in our community. Also, I would be remiss not to mention it's Women's History Month. And while we recognize the contributions of women this month, I think we have to truly look at it and honor them every day for the wide array of innovations and also actions that they've brought to society as a whole. And we greatly appreciate all the women and all the contributions, both locally, nationally, and globally. And certainly last but not least, I'll just make mention of it real quickly. Today's our 100th day in office for this 62nd board. So thank you very much.
Okay. Commissioner Garin.
Thank you. Good morning, Carroll County. I just want to mention, Commissioner Gordon mentioned the Boys and Girls Club of Carroll County. I have gotten the opportunity to meet Sean and Debbie Leiser, and I am just truly impressed with that organization. And they're goal oriented, they're results oriented, and it's just been a pleasure. I'll be brief. Last night was the monthly meeting of the Emergency Services Advisory Council, the group that is really bringing all different groups from the county together to help us, the commissioners, and guide us through this county transition to a county fire and EMS service. I just want to thank that group again for their incredible work, the amount of time they're putting into it, whether it's talking about policies, talking about how they're going to handle training, how they're going to account for what they do, is quite extraordinary under the leadership of Rick Baker, who I personally want to thank for doing such a great job with that. And I want to remind the county that if you're watching, there are 14 separate fire stations within our county, and they are manned by volunteers. Those are people that work for free, but they're doing it because they love it, and they're doing it because they love their community. So I want to encourage everybody not to forget that as we move forward. We need to make sure we're supporting our local fire departments, and I would encourage you the next time there's a fundraiser or the next time there's a carnival to show your support and do what you can for them. They are truly a bulwark of this county and our community, and have been doing that for generations. So let's not lose sight of that as we move forward on our march to what looks like it's going to be roughly over 200 county fire and EMS employees when we're all done with this in July of 2024. So thank you.
Yep, well said. Commissioner Kyler.
Yes, thank you. I wasn't sure if you'd ignore me today or let me speak, so thank you.
I tried to, but I just sometimes can't. Go ahead.
You can't ignore that mustache.
I got to meet with the Transit Advisory Council, and that was a great meeting. I attended State Highway District 7. MDOT did a information meeting about Route 91, the bridge replacements down in Finksburg, and attended that. It was well staffed. They had, I bet, a half a dozen people there. They set it up that there were stations you could go around and look at the information, look at the detour, and then grab any of them that you wanted and ask questions. So they did a great job with that. Monday I visited Ridge Engineering, talked to Dave Tracy. I went to Hoffa House down in Sykesville, which is a recovery house, and great visit. Great people, both staying there and running it. And I was surprised they have such strong ties to Manchester. Many of them went to the same church I went to and lived in Manchester, and we talked about all that. And then I'm currently in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to watch NCAA Division I wrestling that starts a little bit after noon today, your time, and that'll be exciting. But the most exciting thing, and maybe Commissioner Rothstein's going to report on this too, he and I actually got Commissioner Weaver, ex-Commissioner Weaver, to buy us both cheeseburgers. So he can spend money and he can talk for an hour or two. And that's it for me.
Okay, I was not going to mention that, but the highlight was seeing both Rhonda and Lila and having Audrey join us. A couple of things I do want to share. One is our continued commitment in the region is so important. we talk about MACO a lot, Maryland Association of Counties. We talk about MML for our jurisdictions. There are other, regional efforts. The Fort Meade Alliance, and I sit on the Fort Meade Alliance Foundation. We had a board meeting, and it focuses on just that, Fort Meade, but also the community that surrounds it. And 8% of the workforce of Fort Meade, of that 60+ thousand, come from Carroll County. So we matter in the continued growth of the installation, and the Alliance brings opportunity to Carroll County. In addition, met with the leadership of the Baltimore Metropolitan Council along with the Baltimore Regional Transportation Board. These are two, the BRTB, Baltimore Regional Transportation Board, is a federally designated effort that comes underneath the BMC. These are entities that we annually provide funds to, but the amount of funds we get back from them is just so much more. And the opportunity, again, it's just what it says. It's the region around Baltimore and where we fit in. A lot of good opportunities with these regional boards. Having the opportunity to sit down with the leadership the other day was very valuable in us moving forward. So I look forward to continuing to work with both the BMC and with the BRTB. Last thing, on a personal note, if anybody's out there with a kid that's looking to go get a horse, think twice, because I'm dealing with a older horse right now, and it's amazing what they turn into, because my horse had to have 3 teeth pulled, and it was very interesting. My daughter's horse. Actually, what impressed me most, not about the horse or his teeth being pulled, was the veterinarian. The veterinarian is from Carroll County, and she went to Penn State. She went to UPenn Veterinary School. There's very few veterinarians, and they're getting less, and large animal veterinarians are even that much more less. So knowing we have such good skills and such good, folks in Carroll County is just amazing. So shout out to her in doing what she did. I haven't got the bill yet, so I don't know really where we're going to go with that, but just saying.
Does this have anything to do with why you're giving her such high praise?
Pretty much.
gotten
I'm
the
hoping.
bill yet?
I'm hoping she's listening right
That's
now.
what I mean.
She
Get
may
her-
take a decimal point and put it to the right or something, or left. I mean, but we'll see. Anyway, with all that said, life is good. And why don't we just kick it right off with Judge Hecker? I appreciate you coming in this morning.
I appreciate
And coming up, talk about the submission of the FY24 discretionary grant for the Carroll County Adult Drug Court, please.
Well, good morning.
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 Morning, Commissioners. Nice to see
Morning.
you again this morning. Commissioner Kyler, you're virtually here. Nice to see you as well. So with me this morning is my Drug Treatment Court Coordinator, Dina Black. I think most of you know her. If not, I'm introducing her to you now. Also, we have a number of members of our Drug Treatment Court team, including Elizabeth Ingram, who is the assigned prosecutor from the State's Attorney's Office, Stephanie Jones, who is our case manager, and Penny Williams, who is with Pretrial Services. So Drug Treatment Court is a total team effort. It is for those of you who haven't heard me talk about Drug Treatment Court too much in the past, it's a court-supervised drug treatment court program, and we emphasize drug treatment court because that is our mission and goal is to make the individuals who enter drug treatment court personally accountable for their decisions. We hold them accountable. We require them to come to court on a regular basis. They are tested for drugs at least twice a week, and most of our participants are tested 3 and 4 times a week. They are supervised by a case manager and someone from pretrial services or parole and probation. They have to either work or do volunteer community service, and comply with many other rules that we have in the program. So it's been around since 2007. I took over drug treatment court in 2015. We are approaching the point where we almost have 300 graduates from our drug treatment court program. And currently we have 38 participants in the program. We will lose some to graduation on April the 6th. I think I gave you the wrong date last time I was here. I think I may have said the 11th, but graduation is April the 6th. You should have received an invitation. We're hopeful that you can make the program. I know Thursdays are busy for you all, and we don't normally have graduations on Thursdays, but it's at 4:30 at the Carroll Community College. So the purpose of my coming before you this morning, of course, is to request your approval of a grant for drug treatment court in the total amount of $384,940.28, which includes a county match of $4,745. The remaining and the bulk of the funds coming from the Maryland Judiciary's Office of Problem-Solving Courts. I went back and looked at least as far back as 2019, so the past 5 years, and the county match that we've asked for hasn't changed since that time. I didn't go back beyond that. That covers, as the footnote indicates, expenses that we incur annually that are not eligible for payment or reimbursement by the Office of Problem-Solving Courts. And so that's why we've historically included that. I often talk about the societal impact that drug treatment court has on our community, but it also, of course, has a financial impact. The cost of incarcerating inmates in Carroll County, according to our most recent data, is $60.55 per day per inmates. So just to do a little quick math, we have 38, as I said, participants in our program currently. If we just took half of them and incarcerated them for the minimum period of time that a person can be in drug treatment court successfully, which is 13 months, the cost of incarcerating those inmates at our local jail would be just under $450,000, $448,675.50, more than the total grant from the Office of Problem-Solving Courts and the county match here. So, you know, from an economic point of view, from a societal point of view, and not just in the criminal justice system, but all too often, of course, we see grandparents raising grandchildren, aunts and uncles raising children because parents are not in a position to be able to do that and adequately provide for their children. So we look at our program really as having a generational impact on our community. The graduation rate currently is at about 59%, which is a little higher than the national average. I don't know that we want it to be too high. I would, you know, sort of in theory like it to be 100%, but that would probably mean the program's too easy. So the fact that the graduation rate hovers around 55, maybe 60% at times, gives you an indication of how tough it is to successfully complete the program. So I'm happy to entertain any questions you have about the grant request.
Please.
Judge, do you find that over time you've had more successful graduates from the program? Like as time has gone on, do you find that more people are graduating from the program?
I think the graduation rate has been pretty steady. The emergence of fentanyl over the last 4 or 5 years has been something we've really struggled with because it's present not only in drugs, you know, where it's labeled as fentanyl, but it's present and mixed in with all sorts of other drugs, and so that's created, I think, perhaps a stronger addiction in some individuals. But overall, I would say the graduation rate is pretty steady, been pretty
So despite the change in trends and the greater difficulties that we're facing, we're still able to successfully help people get back into daily life.
Yeah, yeah. It's regardless of, we don't take nonviolent offenders, as I think I may have mentioned at a previous board meeting. And so we're not talking about individuals who would likely necessarily be incarcerated for a long time for violent offenses. So when you look at the history of individuals who are in drug treatment court, I think that while putting individuals in jail for certain crimes certainly serves a purpose, ultimately we know that those individuals are going to be released, and we want to try to create a structure for them as much as possible so that when they are released to the community, they're in a better position to be able to make it for themselves and their family. So.
One last question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Yeah, sure.
Do you ever hear from anybody who's graduated after the fact to say, hey,
yeah.
this is how I'm doing, and you know,
Yeah,
what's your
not only do we
experience
hear
with
from
that?
them, we invite them to our treatment court graduations. Oftentimes they're there. I can think of a couple of graduates just off the top of my head. I won't mention their names, but they operate sober living homes in and around our community. So they serve our participants in our drug treatment court programs. Others have established themselves as drug treatment court counselors in sober homes and other programs in the county. So they've gone on to graduate and then mentor and assist other individuals who struggle with substances. So
That is awesome.
we're proud of that, and we're proud of them.
Question, a couple comments. One is, what's the recidivism of those that go through this? I mean, do you find them back in, or is it so low that...
So we tracked that for a few years before
Okay.
COVID, and then we stopped because COVID kind of skewed all the data for a lot of the criminal justice, a lot of criminal cases that we had. So we're going to try to get some more current data on that. But I would say that as of the last time we tracked it, which was probably a year or so before COVID, the recidivism rate was about a third lower than for individuals who had not been through a program like ours.
And I mean, obviously the importance is, you know, what do you need to adjust? What do you need, you know,
Yeah.
where are areas that need more concentration or, you know, X. Now, one of the best comments during the testimonials I ever heard was, and I'm paraphrasing, nobody ever likes to get arrested, but if you're going to get arrested in Carroll County.
Yeah, I remember
And
that. Sure.
that was very powerful. You know, I remember that, and that's always stuck with me because, you know, there's a problem, and you and more importantly your team of the community has identified the problem and coming up with a solution. I want to say tweaking is not a word I typically use, but changing it and modifying it to get the best results in this, you know, drug treatment court. You know, what also surfaced recently is about veterans, and we've had lots of conversations about veterans. And the conversations were, what type of solution, because you got a problem, you want to come up with a solution, what type of solution do we want to come up with for our veteran population going through some challenging times and going into the court system? It's not the same. So it's not like, you know, those in the military that have been around, you know, Iraq and Afghanistan, people like say Iraq, Afghanistan, like it's all one place, and it's very, very different. Very different problem sets, very different solutions. The drug treatment court is a problem set with a specific solution, or with a set of solutions. And our veterans, now there may be some similarities, they may merge sometimes, but they're different solutions. So I applaud you, along with Judge DiLeonardo, coming to us, talking about the veterans docket and a path forward. So whatever I believe we can do to to continue and resource that. And sometimes it's just time, people, like I share with
Yeah.
you. I'd be more than happy to be a mentor to that, you know, at any given time. But I think that's what impresses me, is you're very innovative coming up with, and when I say you, again, collectively,
Yeah.
very innovative, coming up with the right solutions to a problem that's been identified. And like Commissioner Vigliotti said, that problem seems to change over time with the drugs that are out there. And so I just wanted to throw that out there for you.
I appreciate that. Judge DeLeonardo and I have had any number of discussions about the creation of a Veterans Court or Veterans Court docket, and our model can be adapted to Veterans Treatment Court, but we've also, and he's very familiar with Drug Treatment Court, offered to assist him with a lot of the things that, you know, we've learned over the years and mistakes that we've made and adjustments that we've made to help refine our program that I think can be helpful to him when he begins that program. So,
Okay. Any other comments, questions? If not, is there a motion?
A motion. Go ahead, Commissioner Gordon. Go ahead.
I move that the Board of Commissioners approve the submission of the FY24 Office of Problem Solving Court's Discretion Grant application and accept the award.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
You'll have a good day.
You too.
Hey, Commissioner Kyler, it may be just as easy, just giving me a thumbs up instead of the vocal, and I'll be able to see it just as easy. Okay?
Okay, I'm not sure how to do that on,
Well, no, with
On
your
GoToMeeting.
hand. With your,
just do this?
yep, exactly.
Okay.
I think it would just
Yes,
be
sir.
just as easy. So,
Just use the correct finger.
yeah, so it's the thumb, okay? These others don't work.
Always. Always.
Okay, let's talk about Brynwood Hills. Resolution C23, Tax 05, Brynwood Hills.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
So your agenda item is a budget transfer.
Right.
But so you know why you're doing a budget transfer, there's going to be a little explanation first.
Yeah. Thank you, Ted. Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
So we would like to provide you with a little bit of background on the project we're here before you today for several approvals for. So the Brynwood Hills Storm Drain and Stream Restoration Project is a joint project between the Bureau of Resource Management and the Bureau of Engineering. For close to a decade, the Bureau of Resource Management, as well as our Bureau of Roads, has responded to drainage complaints from residents in the Carroll Square subdivision, which is adjacent to Brynwood Hills. Concerns were often expressed regarding uncontrolled runoff from county roadways running through their private properties and impacting the use of properties. Staff from the Bureau met with residents that had expressed those complaints over the years to discuss ways that we could address drainage concerns, address the Bureau's restoration component with looking at stream bank erosion, and an opportunity for the Bureau of Resource Management to meet requirements of our National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit, or NPDES permit. Knowing where the drainage concerns were in the neighborhood, we identified an area where a restoration project could be completed, and through discussions with the HOA, who owned the property, we developed a conceptual plan. In April of 2020, we brought Century Engineering on board to do a storm drain and stream restoration design. The stream restoration design was reviewed and managed by the Bureau of Resource Management, while the storm drain design was managed by the Bureau of Engineering. During the design process, staff has met with numerous private property owners as well as the HOA to ensure that they were on board with this project moving forward. Ed is going to go over some more specific project details.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Background here's stream restoration we did in another location, but this project consists of the storm drain portion, which is outlined here on this aerial photograph in red, and the stream restoration portion, which is outlined in blue. And this is it's a large project, but the one thing that I did want to point out as we're going through this is the cost of this project. When we're talking about our requirement, this will support our requirements that we have to meet for our NPDES permit. On an acreage basis is lower than what we're generally paying per acre for stormwater credit. So I think that's an important thing to recognize here. But essentially, what we want to do is we want to safely convey the stormwater flows and alleviate flooding problems in the community. At the bottom right-hand side, you can see Eldersburg Elementary School, which is at the eastern portion where this project starts. We're starting on the other side of Johnsville Road from where the elementary school is. And if you're familiar with the elementary school, this is the rear of the elementary school, back where the ball fields and all are. Taking that drainage and conveying it through a storm drain pipe to Cortland Drive. And at Cortland Drive, there'll be a diversion structure there. You can actually see where the end of this red block is here. There's erosion happening severe amount of erosion happening in this neighbor's yard here because of the existing storm flows. And what this will do is the diversion structure will take a portion of that storm flows and divert it essentially through storm drains in Cortland Drive and down Merriam Drive instead of all the storm flows being carried through this neighbor's property. Additionally, down here along Merriam Drive, there's a yard inlet going to be placed in the yard up in this portion and convey the stormwater down to the stream. The purpose of the storm drain project is to essentially gather that stormwater that's causing localized flooding problems and erosion and safely convey that to the stream. And here's the drawings from the engineer showing what those storm drains essentially look like. As I was describing, it starts up here across from the elementary school, comes down to Cortland Drive. We have that diversion structure, and then it turns and goes down Merriam Drive. We're also picking up drainage up here at the intersection of Merriam and Cortland in another inlet. And as I said, conveys it down Merriam Drive, where ultimately it winds up in the stream down here on the bottom left of this picture. The yard inlet that I talked about is up here at the top of this design and shows where these storm drains will pick up stormwater and safely convey it to the stream. So, stream restoration project, and why are we doing this? The reason we get credit for this is because nutrients and other contaminants get conveyed to our waterways through the erosion of soils and get carried downstream when you have an erosion problem. And if you look, this is a picture of the banks at a part of the stream where it's highly eroded. In a lot of places here, we have banks that are eroded 10 or 12 feet, and that allows sediment and pollutants to be carried downstream. So by doing this, we're reconnecting the floodplain, slowing the flows, and essentially straightening out the stream bed. Again, this is same type, different scale, but same type of graphics. The blue portion is the portion of the stream that we'll be doing the restoration project in, and that's shown. It essentially runs from where the storm drains dump in up around Merriam Drive, down through the homeowners association property for Brynwood, and ends down here at the at the Edgewood subdivision. Now, we'll be accessing the property through the Sussex Road pumping station. They'll be bringing materials in through there and working from the head of the stream down towards the end of where the project ends. And this is just the engineer's drawings of the overall concept of what what portion of the stream that we're going to be working on. And I think that essentially covers what the project's all about, and the reason that we're doing it. Again, it's twofold. It's working with our Bureau of Engineering to alleviate the local flooding issues, and also to gain that NPDES credit that we're required to have to stay in compliance with our MDE permit.
Go back to that
Let's see. Hang on, did I-
satellite
I
slide or
closed it?
topographical.
I'm
not-
sorry,
That's all
I
right.
closed it, and
If it's gone, that's fine.
I'm not sure. Let's see if I can, probably can figure out how to open it if there we go. Just had to,
Yeah, just the second slide.
the slide.
Yeah. This has been significant for quite some time. And this will take away the flooding on Johnsville, because that's constantly some significant water on the one side, right by Eldersburg Elementary.
Elementary, yeah. So this will put that drainage that has always run down between
Yeah.
kind of those 4 homes
Yep.
below the elementary school. It'll put it underground in a closed system
Yeah.
to better convey it and not impact, many of these residents over the years. And, this is an internal discussion that started between offices kind of back 2017.
Right.
Just getting the funding in place for the engineering, funding in place for construction. And now here we are, we have final plans, we have a contractor, that will be before you to approve. But yeah, these residents are very much excited for this project.
Awesome.
Years in the making, but are definitely ready to see these improvements made to better convey drainage in an area that doesn't have, or has minimal storm drain, in place as is.
So that's great news. So right now, none of the residents are frustrated with the type of work that's going to be done as far as disruption while it's being done.
So I've been talking to the residents directly. And we had a few folks that were a little concerned here and there, and we've managed to work things. This has been an ongoing project that
Yeah.
started long before I came to the
Yeah.
county and was in this position. And some of the neighbors are frustrated that it's taken so long to get to this
Right.
point, because they really needed it done and they're being impacted. And we had a couple of neighbors that we had to work with, but they're satisfied at this point. Everybody's agreed to the project. We have documents that essentially, in order to access their properties, that we needed them to sign to allow us to do the work on their properties. So at this point, we've met with all the property owners and addressed their issues as best we could. Because, obviously, if you're going to take down a tree in somebody's yard or something like that, they're concerned about that, and what are you going to do to
Right.
make it right? So we routinely talk to the residents about what their needs are, and try to make sure that our project doesn't
Okay.
adversely impact them.
Disruption on Johnsville itself. Is it? I mean, you got to cut through underneath Johnsville. So
The construction will actually start,
It
I
starts
guess,
on
below
the,
Johnsville
yeah.
Road. So there will be
Right.
temporary impacts,
Right.
like getting that first section in.
Yep.
But other than that, like Ed said, most of the construction work for the stream restoration is coming through the pump station. There will be, traffic control that'll have to be
Yeah.
done along Miriam, Cortland, and stuff during the storm drain installation. But all that's covered in the plans. And
no, this is great. Like I said, the key was the community knowing, the neighbors knowing
Yeah.
what's going on, when it's happening, what disruption on the side roads, on Johnsville itself, Yeah, it's a lot of standing water, as you know, on Johnsville. So if that's taken away, that's great.
We've had a lot of community meetings, Commissioner, and even just, I guess as recently as, what was it, about 2 months ago, Janet and I went down and offered to meet with the Community Association again. We didn't have a lot of people show up. This isn't a controversial project to the point that you're going to have 50 people show up, but we had a handful of people show up and just ask some questions, and we've tried to make ourselves available to make sure that everybody's comfortable with what we're doing. And we're going to have somebody routinely visiting the site. I know Public Works does things a little differently than we do. They have a construction inspector out there every day. With our stream restoration, we check in periodically. We're not there the entire time that they're working, but the people in the neighborhood have been given our contact information, and they knew who to call if they have any concerns or issues.
Okay. So Ted, we need to move money from one place to
You
another?
want to talk about the cost change?
Oh, before we go into no, that's okay. Before we go into that, I just 2 questions. You talked about straightening out part of the stream bed. Did I understand that correctly?
Correct.
And that is to walk me through that. Is that to help with flow and erosion, to help with flooding, to help with?
Right, you saw the picture of those stream banks there.
Right.
You've got an erosion problem, and what it essentially does is it flattens it out, reconnects the floodplain to the stream so that it reduces that erosion. You put structures in there that are what we call riffles and things of that nature to kind of slow the stream flow and to better manage the volumes that we have. And with doing this storm drain project, they kind of go hand in hand. As we talked about this, whether one should be separated from the other, but conveying that storm water and dropping it there in the stream, it's necessary for us to do the stream restoration to ensure that we don't cause a bigger erosion problem going down through the properties that extend beyond where the storm drains end.
Right, and so on that note, I mean, are there I'm guessing there are other locations in the county where stream straightening will help with flood alleviation.
And we've done some other stream restorations, and a number of the retrofit projects that we've done where we do a stormwater pond retrofit. Sometimes we're doing stream restoration, but there's a whole CIP plan for the projects that we have on our radar that have to do with our MPDES compliance. This one just happens to be one that is a joint project between us and the Public Works Department, because we don't normally do storm drain. We normally do stormwater management, and stream restoration falls into that. But there's some overlap here, and we've been working very closely with them. And as I said, our processes are different, and sometimes that leads to us having to understand each other a little bit better. But communication's been good, and we've been working well together to make this come together for the community.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
I got one quick question. So the stream work which is highlighted in blue essentially on this imagery.
And there's probably the one that better shows that is this aerial, shows the complete portion of the stream that's being worked on.
All that work in blue, the stream work, that is HOA property?
Yes.
Okay, so that's owned by the neighborhood.
That is correct. So it's owned by the Brynwood Hills Homeowners Association, and they have, from the beginning, before we knew a project was going to happen, we approached them with several ideas. Stream restoration was one that fit with their vision of their open space, and it's one of the types of projects that we're able to do to meet our MPDS permit goals. So it aligned with the project.
It benefits us from a county standpoint, from the point that we're able to get the MPDS credit that we're required to get. Whether we're retrofitting a stormwater pond or doing a stream restoration, we have to retrofit. So we have to get credit for so many acres, and this is one that happens not to be on county property, but it gets us. I think it's 65.5 acres of impervious credit for our MPDS permit.
Okay. So there's 2 actions, correct? One is moving money, and then is spending the money?
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't know who's best to speak to that, Janet, maybe Chris.
Yeah.
I guess I get the hard one. This project, as it was a separate project, and then it was brought together. And in, I guess, 2020, there was a fund that was developed specifically for the storm drain part of the project. That was before our costs that we see today. So when the final estimate was put together, we knew we were short based on current costs. And when the bid came in, it came in higher than the engineer's estimate. We went back and looked. The one item that is about $130,000 is 30-inch concrete pipe. And while the unit cost for pipe is typical what you would see on state highway project, there's a small note on the plans in a detail for how it's supposed to be repaired, and that includes the asphalt and everything else which is incidental. So that the contractor read the plans, they're going to do what they're supposed to do, but when the engineer is developing the estimate, they didn't account for that in their estimate. So that's where we see the difference in the engineer's estimate to what the bids were. So when we pull it all apart and we put all the pieces that are supposed to be in that, the pricing is where it should be.
Okay, so the transfer would move money from a project we call infrastructure reserve to this project. This is actually money we included in the last budget in preparation for the possibility of cost increases, because we were seeing prices change so quickly. So while that's not exactly what happened here, the money was available to make this project whole.
To Ted's point, this was priced in 2020. We have seen, like, our plastic pipe has doubled in price in the last year. So we are seeing significant cost increases from when this originally was scoped.
Okay, so you're making the argument that fits where this money is coming from, but your original comment is not about that. It's about not reading the contract appropriately.
So we didn't provide the estimate. The engineer of record provided the estimate. And whoever did the estimate, they used a unit cost for just pipe.
Right.
Not the incidental items that are included.
Which was on the contract
Yes.
that he did not, okay.
So when we got the estimate, it's like, why is it so high? We went back and looked at those items and where we saw the biggest increase, and there's a reason for the increase. All the contractors picked up on that. When we get to the next part, you'll see the bids. The unit costs are, they picked up on that. They recognized where the increase was. So we have two things going on here: unit costs and also the engineer's estimate. We would have been here anyway if it hadn't been for the item on the plan,
Right.
because we didn't have enough from the 2020 budget.
Okay. Sometimes it's just frustrating when people don't read the fine print and how they're held accountable to reading the fine print. I mean, that's their responsibility. I couldn't do it because that's not a job I have, but if somebody has that responsibility, they should, I mean, it doesn't change the fact that we have to move forward, I believe, in doing this, but, right up there with change orders frustrate me. But this really frustrates me when somebody has a responsibility to do a specific job and we're counting on their abilities to do that, and it sounds like they just didn't fully.
So I guess to speak to what Chris was saying, this project, the storm drain portion and the stream restoration, was budgeted for back in 2020. Until we really got into the design work,
Right.
we weren't sure as to when pipe was replaced, when pipe was installed, what work would be
Right.
required as part of this. So this budget transfer that Ted is before you today to ask for would have had to occur with just
Right.
the increases of pipe. the specifications and details that he mentioned, they're on the construction plans. So when the project was bid, those were all taken into account for the project price. So the only piece, I guess, from our project planning that was missed as we moved forward was when the engineer that did the design did his cost estimate, he didn't take those couple factors into account.
Right.
But the budget was set back in 2020 for the storm drain portion where it was. And until we get to what we think or know the final price is, you know, no additional monies have been moved into that budget, which is why we're here today.
You know, I again, I don't want to belabor this any more than this, is that I understand that one point, and I get it. You know, when 2020, things change, prices go up, all that. But the responsibility of what you mentioned, reading a contract and not reading all portions of that contract that adjusted a price, you know, that's where I'm kind of concerned. And it's not, you know, again, it's not my money. You know, it's our community's money, it's our county's. And, you know, we're held to be good stewards of that money. So therefore, I want those reading these contracts to be good stewards and good, you know, held accountable for what they're reading. So I know it's not systemic. I mean, we do a really, really good job. But when it's brought to our attention this way, you know, you want to tell people, hey, you did a really good job. And sometimes you tell them, you know, you didn't do such a good job because this is the situation that's in front of us now. You know, and again, it's not to belabor it so much. And one portion I understand, prices go up, I got that. But the other portion, that if they don't, you know, identify all of the potential, not pitfalls, but, you know, costs, that's what kind of bothers me. So, but that's I won't say that's me, I think that's all of us. But again, it's our responsibility to the county, you know. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know. I'll stop there.
And Commissioner, I agree. I don't think it's systemic either, but I guess the question is, how do we ensure that it, you know, we try to take pains to make sure it doesn't happen again?
Just oversight, continued oversight, I think. So, I mean,
And my humble opinion, and I think the guys talking to us today will agree with that, engineers are great. They designed a project, they did the budget wrong. They've never built a job, they've never been held accountable for the budget. And you just hope they give you a good budget. But the engineer's estimate, we joke about it. If you look at the bid results, Kinsley's the only smart one, over $3 million. And the engineer's estimate doesn't matter anymore. And I think it is systemic. It's and I'm sure our guys on our side of the fence, they look at the budgets, but when the guy budgets it that designed it, you'd like to have faith in it, but sometimes you can't.
okay. No, well said. I think oversight. I think, you know, but again, I don't want to say that we caught something, but again, I just feel that our responsibility, understanding that it's our county's money and how are we good stewards of that, we need to identify these things. So, but any other comments? So Ted, I think what we need to do is transfer money from the infrastructure reserve to Brynwood Hills drainage.
Yes.
So I'll make the motion that we transfer, is it, how much are we transferring?
$365,200.
So I'll make the motion, we transfer $365,200 from infrastructure reserve 8946 to Brynwood Hills drainage 8888.
Second.
I got a motion, I got a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now we talk about where we're spending our money, right?
You may want to indicate that that it was a 5-0 vote since.
It was a 5-0 vote. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with the Department of Land and Resource Management and the Bureau of Engineering, request your approval to award the contract for the Brimwood Stream Restoration and Storm Drain Improvements to C.J. Miller LLC in the amount of $454,919. The Office of Procurement issued a request for bids and received 6 responses, with C.J. Miller being the most responsive and responsible bidder, and with the lowest bid. And this amount is now within the adopted budget. I'll turn it back over to Chad.
Commissioners, I would just point out, I don't think we have to dwell on this a lot, but despite the thing that we were talking about was the construction estimate and the cost that the bids came in, it being higher than that construction estimate. But the four bids that are kind of in the briefing paper that are the lowest bids are very much close to each other, and I think that kind of goes to show that they've all considered the aspects of the project, and this is what it realistically costs to get this project accomplished.
Okay. Well, I'll move the Board of County Commissioners award the contract for Brimwood Stream Restoration and Storm Drain Improvement to C.J. Miller LLC in the amount of $2,454,919.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, let's go into 2024 Consolidated Transportation Plan Priority Letter, and I know we have somebody on the phone. Is there any other?
I have 2 comment cards. Do you want to
Okay,
have those
so
first?
why don't we go to the phone first? Chris, if you can get Stephanie, if she's still on.
Certainly. Stephanie, can you hit star 6?
Hello. Yes, I am still on.
Okay.
Excellent. Thanks, Stephanie. You'll have 3 minutes.
And Stephanie, please
And
just say
begin.
your full name, where you're calling from.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. Good morning, commissioners and staff. My name is Dr. Stephanie Stevenson. My husband and I own 9 York Street in Tawnytown. We also have several business interests in downtown Tawnytown and have already sent letters sharing our concerns about the trucking traffic and the impact that's having on business and economic development. But today, I'd like to speak to you as a homeowner, resident, and as a mother. The heavy truck traffic has become nonstop. All day and all night long, they run unabated through the square at York and Frederick Streets. And at night, the noise from heavy trucks passing every 2 to 3 minutes wakes my entire family from their sleep. It's like trying to live and sleep in a construction site. And I have major concerns about the impacts this is having on our 2-year-old daughter. Research from the National Institute of Health has long shown that this kind of repeated exposure to environmental noise can cause acute and chronic health problems, such as elevated blood pressure and heart rate. It's correlated with cognitive problems, such as reading difficulties, and it's correlated with social problems, such as absenteeism from work and school and drug use. The noise is, in short, having immediate and long-term effects on your constituents' quality of life. I also worry about the structural degradation happening in our nationally registered historic district. Our home, historically known as the 1896 Edward Rheindaler House, is a formidable brick building built on steel beams. Yet the vibrations from the trucks shake the pictures on the walls. It rattles the glass pane windows. There are ever-growing piles of brick dust in our basement and a layer of black industrial film over everything. I can only imagine the damage that is happening to other historic buildings. So I'll close with this. Carroll County promotes itself as offering a peaceful day away from the hustle and bustle of more metropolitan areas. This is the opposite of what the citizens of downtown Tawnytown live with every day, but it's what we deserve. It's why we chose Carroll County. So I humbly ask that you prioritize the Tawnytown bypass in your transportation letter. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stevenson. Roberta, any other?
Yeah, 2 comment cards. First one I received is Christopher Tillman. Come to the mic there.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is Christopher Tillman. I live at 10 York Street in Tawnytown, directly across the street from Dr. Stevenson. And I'm also the proprietor of George's on York Bed and Breakfast. I'm going to start with a little history. I don't know if you all know this or not, but the Tawnytown bypass dates all the way back to 1964, and it was part of the original major street plan in Carroll County. It was a focus of the county government or the city government, and even in the mid-70s, the project was assigned a state highway contract number and a federal aid project number, and an environmental impact statement was completed. In the environmental impact statement, it states the purpose of the roadway is to reduce congestion on existing Maryland 97, which we now know as Maryland 140, in Tawnytown, and to remove the majority of heavy trucks from the town. And this was labeled as a critical need in the county. The project was expected to divert about 60% of the traffic from downtown, reducing noise and congestion. And without the project, the intersection at the center of town was projected to be at level E, which is failure, by 2005. The definition of that failure is continuous backups and an operating speed of under 15 miles per hour. The project did face some opposition from the Department of Agriculture, specifically in the Department of Natural Resources, and there were some disagreements about which segment to construct and which option to take. And interestingly, the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Natural Resources pushed for the no-build option and updating the city streets, which eventually became what is rather ingloriously known as streetscape. The section that we now know as Antrim Boulevard was built subsequent to this in the 1980s. The push was continued in the early 2000s. The city of Tawnytown, on their own, actually did had some preliminary designs completed, and by 2007, they actually had a walkthrough with the county commissioners and people from the State Highway Administration and the County Bureau of Roads to walk through the project. But at the time, the funding was not available to continue it. It has stayed on the comprehensive plan for both the city of Tawnytown and Carroll County. But in 2013, it was dropped from the county priority letter. So where do we sit today? And sit is an operative word. The 2020 Carroll County Transportation Corridor and Subarea Analysis states that the city's goals of removing truck traffic from Baltimore Street and reducing vehicle impacts in the downtown area should be the focus of the county's efforts in Tawnytown. But then it goes on to say that this isn't likely in the near and medium term, that we should rely on strategic improvements to key intersections. However, the State Highway Administration has told us that those improvements are not likely and are not even possible. When talk about sitting, backups of up to a half a mile are common in the afternoons from the square all the way back to Broad Street. I can tell you that that's a definite fact. I sat in one yesterday, as a matter of fact, at 5 o'clock. It took me 6 minutes to get from the Sunoco up to the square, which is an average speed of 5 miles per hour. And you recall, failure is an average speed of 15 miles per hour. This also causes failure at the intersection of Trevanion Road. When that light turns green, cars can't make the turn onto Baltimore Street, and so the intersection blocks up, and that happens all the time.
Please finish up your thoughts.
Okay. It'll be,
Yeah.
if you don't mind. Thank you. I appreciate you indulging my time. The high percentage of trucks and the heavy traffic is hampering our efforts to revitalize downtown Tawnytown. The noise and the speed make the area unfriendly to pedestrians. The traffic backups make it difficult for shoppers to get to the stores. And business patrons parking on the street are fearful of opening their door for fear of having it end up in Emmitsburg. The vibrations are damaging to historic buildings, just as Dr. Stevenson said. Living in one of those historic buildings, I can tell you that is indeed the fact. We're constantly straightening the pictures in our bed and breakfast. And we even did a lighting project about a year and a half ago where we installed some downlighting on the face of the building. And now those lights are inoperative because the bulbs have actually vibrated out of their sockets. You can't even really have a conversation standing on the sidewalk without being overrun by the noise of the vehicles going by. And from a business standpoint, for our business in particular, the only negative comments we get in reviews for our business is the fact that it was difficult to sleep because of the noise on the street. The 2020 County Transportation Corridor and Sub-Area Analysis talks about how much or how little of the traffic stays in town and how much of our traffic goes on out to Westminster or down to Frederick. But what it doesn't address is the amount of traffic that comes through town from Pennsylvania. Indeed, most of the heavy trucks do come from Pennsylvania. On Baltimore Street, they are George & Son transfer trucks and other trucks coming down from the limestone quarries out towards Chambersburg. And on Frederick and York Streets, those are the logging trucks that come out of areas south and west of Frederick and go to the paper mill at Spring Grove. And those trucks are particularly egregious because, generally speaking, those trucks are older, owner-operated, less well-maintained, and just generally louder, and those are the trucks that tend to rely on their engine brakes coming into town in the middle of the night.
Sir, we're going to have to move on.
All right.
But I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
And there's one more, Jay Mishi.
He could probably pick up where you left off.
I could probably. My name is Jay Mishi. I am a resident of Route 140 in Tawnytown, but I'm here today as the city's Economic Development Director. Some of you I have buttonholed, including poor Commissioner Gordon on the day he was sworn in, and I said, can I get a bypass in Tawnytown? I was fortunate soon after I started this job, former Commissioner Wance invited me to attend a Baltimore Metropolitan Council trip. And so Director Eisenberg and Administrator Wyndham have been listening to me talk about the Tawnytown bypass for quite some time. I know that fiscally constrained is one of the words that we talk about when we talk about these plans. And I do want to reiterate something that I think was in one of the documents that Commissioner Vigliotti provided. And that's that we're exploring funding options. We're looking at grants from the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Infrastructure Improvement Act, a variety of different things. And so I don't want anyone to think that we're sort of butting in line, you know what I mean, or that we're about to come to you hat in hand asking for money. But we can't move forward without being on the plan. We've talked to, Senator Van Hollen's office. We've talked to Representative Rupersberger's office, and being included in this plan is kind of the first step because nobody's, it all passes through SHA and then to the county or some other arrangement, coordination that, everybody wants to respect what the county's priorities are. But we really do, we need you to include us. I've been talking as well, Delegate Boucher, back when he was a commissioner, was on Team Tawnytown Bypass. We've talked with Delegate Tomlinson. I've got calls scheduled with Senator Reedy and Delegate Rose. So we are doing a full court push. And we are hopeful and enthusiastic that you'll see our point of view. But also don't worry because we've got stamina. And so we can come back next year and the year after and so on and so forth if need be. Thank you.
I appreciate stamina and persistence. It goes a long ways. So, okay. As shared, we're talking FY 24-29 Consolidated Transportation Program here in Carroll County. Ms. Eisenberg, Ms. Lane, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Commissioners. And yes, we did receive the letters this morning from Commissioner Vigliotti, forward them to us. So we are aware that there is some concern from the citizens of Tawnytown and elected officials regarding the bypass. It was taken off the letter in 2013 because it no longer met the standards according to MDOT SHA for the highway needs inventory. That is the unconstrained list of roadway projects for the state. So again, this would be a state road, I believe is the intent of what the city would want, and I believe the county as well. So in order to make it into funding moving forward, so it can be in our letter in some way, shape, or form, but to make it into the consolidated transportation plan, it first has to be listed on the highway needs inventory. And then it would make it into, at that point, be eligible for the long-range transportation plan for the region. Without being in that plan, the state can't fund it through the CTP, which uses federal dollars to fund these types of projects. So not trying to make this more complex than what it just is a complex scenario of how these projects move forward. My suggestion would be that perhaps wording in the letter would be to have MDOT SHA, because ultimately it's their highway needs inventory listing, to investigate the efficacy of reevaluating the Tawnytown bypass being constructed as a state road. However, there's nothing that prohibits it from being built by the city if they want to do that or take that up, or some kind of joint cooperation. But that would be really the next step, is to get into the highway needs
When
inventory.
was the last time it was looked at for its efficacy? Was that 2013 or?
Yeah, that's when it was removed.
And actually, the county, the planning department at the time, did send a letter requesting that it be put in the HNI, and we got a rejection of that, saying that it didn't meet smart growth principles, or there was a few
In
reasons.
2013.
Correct.
That was probably 2014 or so.
24, it was probably
but
right
we have
after.
a letter on
that
file.
makes sense.
So it's not that it hasn't been pursued. And then after that, it wasn't asked
Okay.
again.
And so what were some of the specifics about that?
Okay.
Why did it not meet those specific?
Yeah.
The letter didn't get specific.
Yeah.
That was the answer given to us. There were a few requests made with that, and they said none of what you're asking meets the smart growth principles.
At that time.
At that time.
So,
It doesn't mean it couldn't be reevaluated. But that was, as Linda said, that was to get into the HNI, the Highway Needs Inventory, which is the first step, the prerequisite even to asking to be in the CTP.
And so what can we do to help facilitate that?
So just what I suggested is maybe if you want to put in the letter that they investigate this again, I would suggest, when you do have meetings with MDOT SHA, to have them reevaluate having this as a state road, because that's what I think the ultimate ask is here, is that it's a state road. I mean, again, it's in our plans because it could be built by the county or the city. I mean, there's nothing stopping that, but to make it a state road, the state has to agree to it and to want to build it.
So we can collectively, if we believe appropriate, write a direct letter to MDOT SHA requesting them to look at the bypass as put into the highway needs inventory
Correct.
outside of the CTP.
Yes, you could do that separately,
Okay.
and we can add a line to
And we can
this
add
as
a
well.
line
Yeah.
also in addition, so it could be two, if we find appropriate, if that's the first step, okay.
And I'll add one more addended piece of information to this. So when dealing with, or speaking with certain constituents outside of Tawnytown, in the county proper, the residents along Roop Road have recently brought it to my attention that there are some major issues with the road itself, potholes and things. What has been happening is that there are some trucks that are using Roop Road, following that around Tawnytown to Bullfrog Road and then back out onto 140 in order to avoid going through town, and that in turn is destroying Roop Road, which in turn, costs us more money as a county.
And I think those are all great points to bring up to the state and having them reevaluate the request of this being in the highway needs inventory.
The last question on this one, the traffic flow, that was in 2013. I'm sure there had to have been some sort of traffic study or something to show traffic flow. Has that changed over time in the last 9 years that causes, that increased traffic, the potholes, that kind of stuff? I mean, I don't know if that's a subjective comment we can make, but if there's an argument that could be made over the last 9 years, this is why we are now, not just 9 years have gone by and let's look at it, but the impact of this has, increased over 9 years because of A, B, and C.
Yeah, we'd have to investigate that.
Yeah.
I don't have that
Okay.
information today.
Okay. Why not? No, I'm kidding.
And so I would
Anticipate
certainly-
so much.
I apologize.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say I would certainly, certainly make the case, and that we at least be included in the letter. If we can't make it onto the list itself, I'd like the bypass to be included in the letter, and I'd also like to ask my fellow commissioners. I don't know whether it would be appropriate now or in the future to talk about a letter that would, advance the project to the highway needs inventory.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems perfectly reasonable. I'm happy to.
Can you do me a favor? Can you take down the presentation?
And then bring up.
Let's put up Commissioner Kyler.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Apologies.
Okay. And I apologize. So we're talking about one thing right now, and that's the letter. A separate letter? Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Okay. And then we're going to get into this.
Yes, sir.
Oh, no, I mean,
Do we need do we want to need a? Do you want a
are we
motion
good,
on
are
that?
we good with that, or?
I think it's
Seems
fine.
perfectly
No, I think it makes
reasonable.
sense.
Kenny, you've been following along. You agree with that?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it makes sense. And I think today was really no action, was a briefing. And I think we've covered, and I think everyone's agreed we need to address this also.
Yeah, okay, so we'll do a separate letter. I think there's homework that needs to be done on what has changed between 2013 and 2023. Specifically, dealing with traffic and traffic flow, if you're talking about potholes and stuff, whatever we can do to strengthen that letter, I think we'll give them attention. That's great.
Thank you
Okay.
very much. Thank you, everybody.
So we'll do two things. One, we'll put a
Yeah, so that's
sentence
one.
of some sort in here, and then in this letter, in your county consolidated transportation program letter, priority letter, and then we'll also do a separate letter. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I would like to mention for people watching and listening that, particularly in my district, District 4, that the stretch of Maryland 27 is included in this letter. I think that situation along Maryland 27 is much worse than people realize, but people that live in my area understand how bad it is. It's actually fairly dangerous. There's numerous intersections, and it's completely backed up, almost all the way up to the Harrison Lesher property, ironically. But I think it's important also for people to realize that, I mean, this letter, it's an important letter. I'm not trying to minimize the importance of the letter, but it's essentially a wish list. We're listing our priorities, but there's no guarantee, there's no promise that we'll be able to get any of these done or even initiated in the next year. I mean, what's our track record, I guess? in
Actually,
terms-
really good.
Yeah.
Really
The
good?
introduction
Well, that's what I
paragraph
wanna hear.
shows
Yeah.
this past year, we have two projects with the IAJA funds that came directly from this letter.
Okay.
Not the entire, I mean, that's why we do the breakout projects on the larger projects, because that's really the only way to get them in. They're not going to put the entire project in, but we try to identify breakout projects that we feel are most important, and two of those did end up, for the 1 and 2 priorities, did end up in the budget this year.
Yeah, as shared, stamina and persistence goes a long ways, and this letter has proven itself with funding, but also the work we do in Mako and summer conference, having our meetings with MDOT and State Highway and all those folks, and really every opportunity, like Commissioner Kyler met with State Highway, District 7 last night or whatever night it was, means a lot. They really do listen, and yeah, I mean, So the letter's one thing, but I think it's also the letter with our actions, with your involvement, as I mentioned, with BRTB, and with also our engagements, have really helped. So I can't compare it to other counties, but yeah, I know I've seen positive traction, so.
Yeah, we've had good results over the last 8 or so years. Part of that has been because we have really narrowly focused what the priorities are, and we've stuck with those priorities. I think one thing that's difficult, and I don't want to speak for MDOT SHAs, but if we're switching every year, what's the priority, then when these projects are multi-year, decade sometimes, not just millions, but can be tens of millions of dollars, and you're changing them frequently, then it becomes hard to invest, because then what really is the priority, and why is it that way? So part of it's based on what your needs are, what changes have occurred in the infrastructure, traffic patterns, demographics, development in the surrounding communities. All of those things lead into it. So our strategy over the last 8 years has been to focus on top 3 or 4 projects in the county, writing out what those projects are holistically. And can we pull up the letter? Would you mind?
Sure.
Okay. And then focusing on reasonable breakout projects that improve the traffic flow, safety, conveyance, all of those things within each of those priorities. Are we going to get a dualization of 32 fully by 2040 in a $200 million project? Probably not. But what we will be getting are real system improvements by doing these upgrades in areas where they really need it. So from the recent future, what we've received is now this past year, the geometric construction improvements on 32 between 2nd and Main, which is huge. That's really great for that particular area. As well as a big one was the feasibility study for Maryland 97. The reason that is so important is without the feasibility study, I can't make it into, this is where it gets really, again, all these things crazy, the Chapter 30 legislation, which was put into the Maryland State Legislature, I guess 2014, 2015, and it has to meet the certain Chapter 30 criteria for major capacity enhancing projects of $5 million or more. So this feasibility study and what needs to exactly happen based on that from Maryland 97 will then make it eligible for the Chapter 30 scoring, which is supposed to be nonpartisan, non-political, more of a quantitative approach to funding roads projects.
Just for the good situation awareness of my colleagues, we got barked at by some for moving priorities around and moving 97 above others because of the order that we've had them in for so long. But knowing that we were not going to get a feasibility study unless we put 97 up front, it was never going to get there. And we did. And I definitely don't feel like we rolled the dice. We understood the environment and what needed to be done, and we did, and we got what we wanted accomplished. So sometimes, you're going to get barked at on doing things, but, and I really appreciate the two of you, leading us into that, because that never would have gotten done. So yeah, if 27 is becoming like such the highest priority, then we got to ensure that that gets, up there above others to ensure that things can get done.
Thank you.
So that's, this does mean a lot, and I really applaud the two that are in front of us for doing this, but 97 is a great example of.
I would also go to Maryland 27 as well. Several years ago, we put Maryland 27 safety issues in this particular letter. And another thing that goes a long way is the county also supplying dollars, matching them. So that was a project where the county also put forward money, actually also with Maryland 97. They've seen our commitment financially to Maryland 97 as well. They like to see those partnerships. And that really does help move these road projects further. I know that sounds, they're state roads, and so why is the county putting forward money? But they're also roads that serve the county and that move through the county. And so all jurisdictions put up something. It's not just unique to Carroll that we're putting money in. Other jurisdictions do it to help forward their projects as well. Because again, you're not talking, hundreds of thousands. You're really talking millions and tens of millions of dollars for many of these projects. So having that commitment on our level as well helps the state with their commitment too. So with that, we presented to you last year's letter, and then we forwarded up to this year's letter with some of the discussion points that we had with you all. Some different changes, and I'll have Mary walk through the letter, but kind of getting back to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This year, went more in a bulleted approach because these really are our 3 top priorities. It's hard to place one over another at this point unless you all choose that you want to have it back to the numbered. Every jurisdiction really does it differently. It just kind of depends. And so this year, given that, we at least have the discussions and not one is really higher than the other at this point, just bulleted them out. So right now that the order in which they're represented does not necessarily represent the priority that we see at this point in time. So unless you want to direct us differently as we move through the letter. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mary to give you the highlights of the letter itself.
Okay, thank you. As we said when we were here in February, we were going to use the month to go back to the other agencies and the towns and talk to them about any changes, any updates that they saw. There were very few this year, and now we'll be adding the mention of the Tawnytown bypass.
And there's actually one more I'd like to talk about after you go through the letter.
So I'm just going to go page by page and point out pretty minor changes. On the first page, other than the obvious changes to the names on the letterhead and the secretary, we did make a point to thank the department for the design and construction of the geometric improvements at 32 between 2nd and Main. Those were the IAJA funds we referred to, as well as this feasibility study for the Maryland 97 corridor. That's really the only major change on page 1. On page 2, there's nothing major, but we did add in some language suggested by Sykesville at the end of the Maryland 32 discussion. They wanted language, if you see the 3rd line from the bottom, this language that says advancement of the project while preserving further expansion of the corridor and remaining open to new connections as the area develops. They wanted to make sure that language got in there, so we did that. Let's see, we've already discussed prioritization. As requested, Linda did reach out to her counterpart in Howard County about them including this project in their priority letter, or the part of this project, the bridge part of the project. Did you want to?
Yeah, the bridge part of the project and the connection of Maryland 851 on the Howard County side. Right. At this point in time, that's not a priority for Howard County. So I think the suggestion would be if you wanted to reach out to your elected counterparts there and have them, if they want to include it, maybe.
If I can ask, help set that up where we have both staff and leadership there, and I can meet with the county executive, but he needs to be fed information on the importance of this. And what we're talking about is 851 feeding into Main Street off of 32. The beginning portion of it is Howard County's all the way to Patapsco, and that bridge, it's Howard County, and then it feeds into Carroll County. So we're prioritizing Main Street, but if they don't prioritize the rest of it, which is like a quarter mile, then, it can be not very nice, so.
And maybe the discussion too would be maybe not so much put it in the priority letter, because I don't know if that quarter mile would elevate to that over $5 million status,
Right.
but maybe speaking with them on a different level about making some improvements that would be beneficial on that side to Maryland.
Because there's a lot of tension going there. I mean, they got the park there, they got the skate park there. There's a lot of folks that are using that area, so, okay. Yeah, but if you can help me
Sure,
set up
certainly.
a meeting, that'd be great.
Okay, moving on to page 3, regarding Maryland 26 and 140, there have been no changes. We are still recommending the breakout project that came from the 2020 SHA study of Maryland 26. No change to Maryland 140 corridor improvements. The breakout project that is underway now is the jug handle design for westbound traffic at Maryland 91 and 140, and that is, the design of it is moving along, or the concept of it is moving along, I believe. And then the 5th project, there's 5 capacity enhancing projects, as Commissioner pointed out. This was added last year at the request of the town of Mount Airy, which is the corridor improvements from the Carroll County line to Lyshear Road. There was a study done of this when, I'd say almost 10 years ago for the town's master plan, but there have been no breakout projects identified. So this one is still, I think, in the initial stages. We could work on looking at breakout projects.
And we also, when we did our transportation master plan consultant study as well, the same consultant that happened to be doing our transportation work was also the ones that had done the Maryland 27 study. So they had a good understanding of that study and were able to pick out the salient points and add those to what our work was as well.
Would it be helpful if there were breakout projects to this or no?
I think it's
would they
always
get more
helpful
attention?
because
Yeah.
it's really the only way to get things done.
If
So
you
we
have
usually
breakout.
do like to identify them. The consultant study didn't have any identified, and when the town made the request last year, it was, I don't want to call it a last-minute request, but we didn't
Yeah.
really have a lot of time to work with them. We could work with them, I don't know about for this, maybe for next year's priority letter on working on a breakout project for that. There's nothing
Yeah.
identified. It would take a little bit of work.
And I think too, figuring out what happens with the Beck property would be part of that, and I think that's just kind of unknown. So I think once more is known about that, it would help narrow down what breakout project would be most applicable to this.
I agree. I mean, I won't say it's smaller, but if you can identify the projects, get attention to them. So, okay.
Okay, so those are the 5 capacity-enhancing projects. Still on page 4, the 2 streetscape projects. The first one is Sykesville Main Street. Really, the only change to the language here was the town of Sykesville proposed adding language that said this would be an opportune time to advance this project to include full engineering. And then they also said the area was also awarded a $2 million capital grant in the 2022 legislative session, which will help further advance the town of Sykesville's ongoing efforts for several other adjacent projects. So they suggested that language, and we put it in. It doesn't change anything really about the status, but it's good language to include. And then on page 5, the other streetscape project, which is New Windsor, we talked to the staff at the town, and the following language, starting where my cursor is, was put in as an update. New Windsor has awarded a contract for the water main improvement project, which is integral to getting this streetscape project moving forward. Construction will begin in June 2023, is expected to take 18 months. Then the town looks forward to discussing next steps. So this has been a process as well, and it looks like there's movement being made. So we included that update in there.
I'm very glad that that was one of the other 2 that I wanted to talk about. So I'm very glad that New Windsor, their streetscape project, is on here. I'd spoken with the mayor over the weekend, and as you know, I've sent the email or forwarded the email from him this morning. So I'm very grateful that that is on the list.
Okay, the next category is transit projects, and as I said last time, this paragraph on transit projects has been updated to mirror the ATP that Stacy, it's ATP, right? Yeah. That Stacy Graham brought to you several weeks ago. Stacy Nash.
Nash, yeah.
No, but
Is it Graham?
Graham.
She got married.
Yeah.
I just knew Nash. Okay, Graham.
Stacy Nash Graham.
Yeah, thank you. So that is the exact language that we received from her.
Okay.
So that's the change there. Then moving on to the bike ped trail projects, there used to be 3 on here. The first one was the Governor Frank Brown Trail, which has been on for years and years, and Director Deggetts has suggested that this year it be removed. It just, because of the security concerns at the Readiness Center, and this has been going on for many years. Yeah, it just isn't moving forward, and he just suggested we
Are
take
there
it out.
any alternatives to that trail?
Well, like going through the community, having a terminus at the end of a community street, and the community is not interested in that either because they don't want the traffic coming through their community. So there aren't a lot of other options that are.
You just want to see me bludgeoned. There's a long history to this trail, so, okay.
So unless you tell us otherwise, that has been removed from the letter. Then moving on to a section that possibly...
Excuse me, just go up to the Wakefield Valley, that was in last year. Again, City of Westminster is really moving this forward. We actually wrote a letter of support for them because they're looking for federal funding as well to help move this project forward. So this has been one that we added in the last year or two, and it's getting a lot of traction, especially with the city.
Okay, and just not with Frank Brown Trail, I do want to have a meeting with Mr. Daggetts about it. So I don't want it to die just yet, but
As soon as the state gave away the land to the Readiness Center, it pretty much killed it. But yeah, we can definitely have that conversation.
yeah. Thanks.
Okay, and then the next section of the letter that begins, what page is this? At the bottom of page 6, this would probably be the appropriate place to talk about the Tawnytown bypass. This is where we've always talked about other concerns of the commissioners, not really road maintenance or anything, but things that are a little more elevated. So the first one that we put in several years ago was just saying, even though it's not one of the 5 priorities, Maryland 140 Sullivan to Market widening is somewhat of a priority. And then Commissioner Rothstein, you've had in for a few years, or suggested for a few years, a study of the safety concerns at 26 in Johnsville, and possible mitigation efforts. And then last year, the Department of Public Works asked that we talk about safety enhancements at the turnaround for the northern landfill. There was one project that was removed this year because there was some progress made on it. We had asked for several years for a study of the safety at Maryland 31 at Medford Road, and I believe that was studied, and there are rumble strips there now. That was the solution to that. So we're taking that out of the letter because it was studied. And then this is the same language that was in last year, that is requested that all members of the BRTB put in their letters giving support to regional projects. And it's understood that everybody's supporting everybody else's projects. But it's important to have that regional support. And that's really it, other than, again, the change in names and positions. So other than the inclusion of the Tawnytown bypass in that section we just went over, are there any other changes you would suggest to this before we bring it to you next week for your signature?
Well, thank you. Just real quick, 2 quick things. So with the language for the Tawnytown bypass, is that something you'll be in touch with the mayor about, or would you like me to reach out to Tawnytown for that?
We were gonna develop it.
Okay.
Yep. I don't think we need to do that. We were just, basically what I said would be my suggested language is investigate the efficacy of reevaluating the Tawnytown bypass as being constructed as a state road.
Okay.
So something to that effect in that section.
That demonstrates our interest
Saying
in
the H and inclusion into the highway
thank
needs
you.
infrastructure.
Inclusion into the H&I.
Thank you very much. And then the other thing I'll mention, with the multitude of things I sent to everybody through email, the documents, I included an email from Mayor Jones in Union Bridge. And so back in January when I was doing the homelessness count, I saw him in passing, and he'd mentioned, remember, Roberta, I couldn't remember what road he was talking about, and so it turns out it's 75. And between 2016 and 2021, as his email explains, they've spent almost $81,000 on that road, and it's a county road that goes straight into the town, and so they're interested in the county taking over the 0.6 of a mile of that road.
Isn't it a state road?
I think it's a state road, isn't it?
Well, Maryland 75, so I think
Well, I
the
apologize.
county portion would not be part of the
Right.
priority letter. So that would be on us, the county.
Okay, so that wouldn't.
Not
okay.
part of this letter effort.
Okay, so all right.
Go to the, I think go to the web, go to Google, Chrome, down, yeah.
If
Is
we
it-
bring,
yeah,
there you go. Thank you.
Yeah, in his email. Let's see. I have
it-
his email here.
Forwarded,
This is the only county road coming into a town-owned street with this type of traffic in Carroll County. The Mayor and Town Council of Union Bridge would greatly appreciate the county taking over maintenance of the 0.6 of a mile once you studied the cost of it for the town budget to maintain this throughway of traffic.
Yeah, so if the board were interested, I mean,
That would be something other than the CPT loan.
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
if the board were interested in the county becoming responsible for any road that we're not already responsible for, that would be a board decision through, usually made through the budget process, because he would have to budget for maintaining that.
Okay, well, I apologize for that
No,
then.
No, it's okay. But But I think it's a state road, so I don't think.
Maryland 75 is, but Shepherd's Mill is not.
Oh, is this Shepherd's
Oh.
Mill they're talking?
I thought you said
Just
75.
near there.
Yeah, Union Bridge Road from Main Road, North Main Street to Route 75.
To Route 75.
Route 7.
So I have to investigate. I'm
Okay.
not familiar with that stretch
Yeah.
of road. I don't know enough about it.
Okay, so I apologize for being unclear. How about that?
Yeah, that's okay. No worries.
And thank you everybody for your patience with me.
Not all. Breakout projects. You don't think we're going to be ready for breakout projects down 27 for this letter?
I don't believe we'll be ready in time. I would suggest waiting for the town to see what happens with the Beck property and how they're going to move forward, and then perhaps recommending next year, because I don't know what a breakout project would be for this at that point, at this point in time. And we did have that light and intersection upgrade several years ago.
Gillis Falls.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So.
And the other thing is the town is currently working on an update of their master
Yeah.
plan, which I would assume will be almost completed, if not completed, next year, so they may identify in that their priority. for that type.
Yeah, and they're doing some rezoning. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what you're looking for now is the final edits and staffing to then be
Yes.
approved next week.
Correct. So what we're looking for is if you're good with the direction that you've put us on, we will go ahead and make the adjustments and come back to you with a final letter
Okay.
for your review and then signatures. And then typically our past practice has been we work with Mike Fowler, our legislative liaison. He takes this to our delegation prior to the end of session to have them sign on to the letter as well. And then we forward it to Secretary of MDOT in
Do you
April.
find it easy to work with Mr. Fowler, or is that a challenge?
He is in the back of the room.
Is excellent to work with.
Okay, just asking.
Always a pleasure.
Commissioner Kyler, do you have any comments besides on Mr. Fowler?
Oh, good to me.
Okay. Any thoughts, any comments? Really appreciate, as always, the work, and do we need, don't need a motion, is just staffing, correct?
No,
Ms.
nothing. We don't
Roberta?
need anything.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you very much for all of your work and your patience.
Absolutely. So we'll be back with you with those adjustments, and then we can make a final decision
Sounds
with you
great.
next
Now
week.
get back to work.
Take care.
Okay.
And if Commissioner Vigliotti, if you didn't forward the request from Union Bridge to Linda as well as
did I-
to.
Got it.
You got it?
You
Okay.
got it. Okay, I didn't
All
know
right.
if you did. Okay, great.
Awesome.
Okay,
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Fowler.
We can investigate for you.
Thank
got
you very much. Thank you.
25 days till sine die.
Yeah, and only 4 to crossover.
And yeah.
Just to dovetail on your previous discussion, so the regulations actually say that the delegation should be informed. Every county goes about it in a different way. Some have their entire delegation sign the letter. Some just inform their delegation. Others have the chairs. So I'm going to talk with Senator Reedy and Delegate Rose about how they want to proceed. Sometimes chasing the delegates around is a problem. There was a suggestion last year that we come before a delegation meeting to walk them through the projects. We do have 2 new members of the delegation, a new senator and a new delegate. Well,
Actually, no, I apologize.
well, we have a 3rd new delegate who has experience in the letter, though. But 2 that I don't think, certainly not experienced our version.
And then 1 new senator. Okay.
Right,
I see.
right. So I'll talk to them, and I've talked to Linda and Mary, and they certainly agree to having a Zoom meeting if necessary, or they're really busy right now, so the scheduling of that might be
Right.
difficult, so.
Whatever's appropriate.
We'll
Give
walk through
guidance.
that.
Okay.
So yes, it's crunch time. Things are moving quickly. They're having double floor sessions. Still actually having bill hearings in committees. So those bills are very late, depending on how much juice they have, let's say. They may have a challenge getting through the process. Yesterday we had our hearing on the purchasing bill. I just think that's so late that we might not see that this year, but we get in early next year, I think we can get that through. The Commissioner District bill, the Senate's on the floor for third reader, final passage today, and that'll cross over. I don't suspect there are going to be any problems with that. Two big bills we've been following: the cannabis bill that's in the Senate committee now. I don't think we'll see any changes from either the zoning or the revenue perspective. So if I had a brief discussion with Linda on the zoning aspects of this, you'll probably have to change or make some adjustments to zoning when this is passed. Seems to me if you just make them aligned with the medical dispensaries, then you'll probably stay out of trouble. But again, that whole issue of unduly burden is still hanging out there. The winery license bill we talked about last week has passed the Senate. It's over in the House now. I talked a little bit about this gross receipts ratio, and I think I pulled that off the state license. This refers to the Class D beer and wine license that the county issues, and there is no ratio requirement in that, so that's not going to apply there. So the House version hasn't moved, but at least they will have the Senate version and see where that goes.
I was going to say, do they have any sense of where if it may go through the House, or if it's...
I'm sorry?
Do they have any idea where it is in the House? Because you said it moved through the Senate, but it hasn't moved.
Yeah, the committee hasn't.
Okay.
They've heard it, but they haven't taken it up.
Okay.
So they'll get it. A lot of these bills, there's some tacit agreement on either side, which House will take the first shot, if you will, at the bill. So we don't know specifically on this one, but that happens often.
Yep, thank you.
Of course, our favorite House Bill 119 has passed the House. It's over in the Senate. As we say, the original Senate bill is probably in the drawer. I did read a little bit about this, and Senator Lamb in the Senate, he sounded, I'll say hinted, that it probably won't pass because he said it may not pass. And generally, for something you're supportive of, you're not going to throw that out there in that way. So I think the Senate probably, I know they have some problems with it. So the question is whether they'll tweak it and move it, or just not move it at all.
And as shared, I got the same response from others, so at the Senate side. So let's look forward to that not passing.
And everyone acknowledged receiving the joint letter from the both boards in our delegation. So
okay,
we're good there.
Those letters, are those public once they're out? Once we sign, are those available to the public?
Sure. They're a public document. If they ask, I mean, we don't
So,
publish them
because somebody
somewhere.
did ask me, hey, can I see a copy of that letter? I'm like, yeah. I just, okay.
Yeah, they went to the state legislature, so
yeah,
they're public documents.
I believe Mike forwarded the signed letter to the commissioners, but we can get it to you if
Okay.
you don't have it.
Thanks.
Yes, you were copied on there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. A couple of election bills, a little challenging. So the Election Reform Act, that will pass the House. It originally was a bill that discussed a public notice process for changing precincts, adding precincts, taking them away. There were some amendments placed on it that would probably change the number of precincts in the county. So that will pass the House. The Senate, again, we're in a situation where they may not be in agreement with that. So as you know, our local Board of Elections Director, Catherine Berry, also leads up the Association for the State. So she's fully engaged in all the election bills, frankly. So she's got a lot of relationships down there. She'll she'll be working this to try to get the best outcome. Then the minimum compensation bill, where it would require new election judges to be paid $250 a day. There was an amendment put on that would give a bonus to returning election judges. So they get a $100 bonus on top of that. Delegate Tomlinson attempted a floor amendment yesterday to try and get a 50-50 split with the state of those bonuses. As you might imagine, the amendment failed, and but we still have the Senate to try to do that. There's been, in the last couple of sessions, there have been some movement to get 50-50 splits for some of these proposals. So, and again, this is all for the 2024 election, so another legislative cycle to try to fix some of this. The firefighting related bills, so the Commission to Advance and Strengthen Firefighting was amended to include emergency medical services. This will be a commission comprised of the typical stakeholders. You have the rank and file associations, fire associations, chief associations, MACO and MML are going to be part of that discussion to talk about what incentives and practices other states have instituted that may help us with this. So it's going to pass the Senate and go over to the House. The House hasn't moved on there, so same situation there. And lastly, the fire suppression issue with the solar batteries. The House Bill 1099 was probably the one that I think probably had the most chance. Senate Bill 636 was pretty wide-ranging. As you see, it required a self-contained suppression system, an explosion prevention system, air quality monitoring. That was pretty ambitious. That's been withdrawn by the senator. But the other bill is the one that is still in play. And when I mentioned that it focuses on solar, but the fire code that deals with suppression on batteries is a general battery code. So that one is still in play. Mm-hmm. And lastly, the big issue, of course, is the budget. The operating budget is on the House floor today. They've been going through that with the agencies. The capital budget, not yet. That's still to come. We do know there are a couple of challenges. So there were some budget items dedicated to Carroll that were in Governor Moore's budget. The bulk of them are really state projects that fall under the Carroll County title. The ones that I think are of interest to you, of course, the Veterans Home remains in there. That's 6.3 some million. That remains there.
That's like 60 something. 60.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, total for the project,
No,
right?
total for projects about 180 some odd
Okay.
million. 2/3 is federal, but 60 some odd million is state.
Okay.
So.
And the Youth Services Bureau is in there. The others are the College Career and Tech Center and Tapsco Valley State Park, a state police underground fuel storage tank, and a playground in Union Bridge. So they're all still in there. The other projects come through legislative bond initiatives.
Mm-hmm.
There have been probably 1,300 legislative bond initiatives put forward. Several $billion, I think. So that's all going to be weeded through by the committees. The other complications are there have been $100 million set aside dedicated to the FBI moving to Maryland. So they want to have matching funds in place if and when that decision is made. So they've put that over on the side. And then there was a $478 million write-down in revenue for the balance of 23 and 24. So that's complicated the issue. So I've got to call into Senator Reedy. I'll be down there tomorrow. I'll knock on some doors and see if I can get any intel on when those decisions are going to be discussed and made.
Hampstead Fire, Ag, playgrounds, those are the issues you're talking about.
Yes. Yes.
They're part of that 1,300 and some odd, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hampstead Fire, American Legion, Hampstead American Legion, that's all part of those numbers that you're
That
talking
were
about.
right, that were presented to the delegation. Yes.
Okay. But you're like really smart and aggressive, and I know you're going to get them all. So, wow.
Big shoulders, yeah, big shoulders.
Okay.
So that's where we are. As I say, a lot of things are moving very quickly, and crossover is Monday.
Yep.
Now, that doesn't mean that bills won't still go through the process. That just means that the bills that each chamber intends to pass are going to be communicated to the other chamber.
And then
anything that comes in late goes to rules, and
And then
so
next
there's still a
week,
path through.
we have Mako in person on the 22nd.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions, comments for Mr. Fowler?
I guess just a comment. Wish everybody good luck down there for the remaining few days. I know it's going to be a lot going on, and hopefully we see some positive movement our way.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Ms. Celine, why don't you come on up and talk about the FY24 Community Partnership Agreement?
Check my watch, sorry. It's still good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm joined today by Gabby Zelaya, and also Corey Hardinger is with us in the back from the Grants Office. And we are here seeking approval to submit our FY24 Community Partnership Agreement application and then also acceptance of the award. I'm going to have Gabby go ahead and walk us through the allocations that we have that were recommended by our local management board. We are requesting FY24 funding from the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth and Victim Services to support the 3 local programs that we'll be talking about, and then also other community initiatives and continued funding for our local management board manager, as well as our local care team and the administration.
So good morning, commissioners, and it's nice to meet some of you for the first time in person, at least.
Morning.
So as Celine had spoken to, we are here today to talk about the submission and approval, or excuse me, submission of the CPA application and accepting the award. So this is for several programs that have been going on in our community, as well as some initiatives that have been going on in our community for a couple years. We have $292,833 allocated to the Connecting Youth in Carroll County program, which is at the Carroll County Youth Service Bureau. Operating since fiscal year 2018, this program works with disconnected youth in Carroll County who are 16 to 24 years old, not in school, not working, and who may be experiencing housing instability or homelessness. This program re-engages and prepares these youth for self-sufficiency by reducing barriers preventing employment or education, such as poverty, homelessness, lack of mental health treatment, and lack of transportation. In fiscal year 2022, this program served 80 total youth, and of those youth, 35 were new to the program in that fiscal year, and 45 had carried over from the previous fiscal year. $119,081 are allocated to the Wraparound Family Services program at Together We Own It. Operating since fiscal year 2021, Wraparound Family Services is designed for children ages 0 to 24 and families with complex needs, which cannot be served by one organization. This program prevents gaps in services by working with entire families on a continuum, identifying family strengths and barriers, updating service referrals as additional needs arise, identifying additional children and families in need of wraparound services, and fostering collaboration among local partner agencies. In fiscal year 2022, this program served 115 total clients, and of those, 90 were new to the program in that fiscal year, and 25 carried over from the previous fiscal year. $106,199 are allocated to the Suicide Intervention and Prevention Services Program at the Carroll County Youth Service Bureau. Operating since fiscal year 2020, this program creates a greater sense of connectedness and support for individuals through outreach, advocacy, and intervention. These efforts include conducting psychoeducational presentations for community members as a primary suicide prevention effort, enhancing local agency partnerships to strengthen youth suicide prevention efforts, closing gaps in existing efforts by increasing accessibility of services for youth in crisis, and enhancing the confidence of clinical staff when assessing suicide risk. A new component of this program in fiscal year 24 is postvention, which is an organized response in the aftermath of a suicide and includes facilitating healing, mitigating other negative effects, and/or preventing suicide among people. In fiscal year 2022, this program served 131 total clients, which means they received either an assessment and/or a consultation using one of the screening tools. So on the budget in the briefing paper, you'll see $8,372 are reserved for community support initiatives, of which there are 2. So $6,000 of these community support funds are allocated to the Boys and Girls Clubs of Carroll County's Summer Leadership Academy. This is a summer program for middle and high school youth, aged 13 or older, who have aged out of traditional summer camp programs. And it is a combination of leadership and workforce development programs, which are intertwined with weekly curriculum and skills development activities that build upon each other. The remaining $2,372 of those community support dollars are allocated to the Youth Action Board of Carroll County to support these local young leaders who play a valuable role in guiding decision-making for youth and family-serving organizations and practices. So far, these young people have created a board with formal bylaws, established an executive team of youth to lead the board, held regular meetings to discuss future goals, and have participated in several key conferences like Maryland United for Youth in Annapolis and the National Network for Youth Summit in Hill Day in Washington, D.C. $48,863 are allocated to support the operation of the local management board. So local management boards are in statute to facilitate local collaboration and strengthen local service delivery to children and families. Here, we hold regular board meetings, we attend statewide meetings throughout the year, we monitor various programs, and we also facilitate the Carroll County Local Care Team. In fiscal year 2023 alone, we have monitored, or are monitoring, over $1 million in funding between the Board of County Commissioners, Governor's Office for Crime Prevention, Youth and Victim Services, Department of Human Services, and Department of Juvenile Services. $71,678 are allocated to support the operation of the Carroll County Local Care Team. So the LCT is an interagency work group that meets with families of children with intensive needs to facilitate discussion and problem solving for the child and the family. And the LCT also helps prevent out-of-home and out-of-state placements of Carroll County youth. And last but not least, $56,310 of the general funds are recommended in the fiscal 24 operating budget. So did you have anything to add? Okay. I know it was a lot, so if you guys have questions, please.
Any questions, comments? I mean, what's so impressive is terminologies change so often, but the needs remain. You know, when you say disconnected youth or psychoeducational or postvention, I mean, terms I'm not used to hearing, but understanding the needs are just, you know, incredible. So I appreciate it. Yeah, appreciate everything you're doing.
Definitely.
You're becoming one of those rock stars, so you got to be careful.
Thank you very much.
This pen too, so.
Do you have I guess like a cumulative or a grand total number of people that you've been able to help through these specific programs?
It's something we could definitely get off the top of my head.
Oh, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I apologize. I was just
it's
curious.
okay.
Oh, put her on the spot. It's okay.
Yeah, the FY22 numbers here that I shared, those were the total clients served, and we collect a lot of data. These programs do a lot with data collection and compilation, and we do a lot with analysis. But yeah, over the years, you know, I would say that the numbers have remained pretty steady. Connecting Youth, I want to say they served 75 to 80 the past couple years. It's a program that was originally designed to serve 36 youth. So really it has exploded through the years. The Suicide Intervention and Prevention Services program, that was kind of a enhancement of a partnership that they have through Carroll County Public Schools.
Right.
So this just built upon that relationship and really allowed those services to flourish in the community. And Wraparound Family Services is still, it's new. It's been, around for a couple years, but it's still pretty new. So we have seen an explosive need for that as well, just to help with enhanced collaboration and connection. And that's just, the programs that we have now. We have funded and utilized other programs in the past as well. So anyway, all of that is to say, if you wanted more data, I'm happy to get that to you.
A lot of this was also shared with Senator Cardin after the Veterans meeting over at CCYSB. And again, it was an opportunity to see at the table the schools, CCPS with CCYSB right there, with one voice. And you definitely, from Carroll County's perspective, from my perspective, you see one voice coming out of a lot of the community efforts we do. So, I'll move the Board of County Commissioners to approve the submission of the FY24 Community Partnership Agreement application and accept the award.
Second.
I got a motion. I got a couple of seconds. Any discussion?
I do want to make sure I understand what we're voting on. So there's the award, but then there's the county general fund dollars that are included in here. So are we voting on an award, or are we voting on an infusion of county dollars to the
So
LRB?
today what we're asking is for you to approve us to submit the application and then accept the award that we would receive from the state.
Okay.
For the LMB. You are not voting on the general fund dollars, but they are in the recommended budget that will be coming before you for vote.
Okay, just clarifying.
So if for some reason they fell out of that recommendation and didn't get voted upon and approved upon, we would have to rework our budget from the local management board and go back to the local management board to see how we could fund at the same level the positions.
Okay, thank you.
Good point. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 5-0.
Thank you
Here,
very
Gabby,
much.
you gotta
Thank you.
take this.
Oh.
You got a lanyard, but I don't think you have one of these on there.
I
so-
don't. You're right. I need to add on to it.
You do. There you go. Thank you. Okay, let's talk about 23-24 Hazardous Materials Emergency Preparedness Grant Application.
Now it's afternoon.
Now it is afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chief.
I'm just sitting here. Valerie's
Commissioners.
here virtually.
Good afternoon, Valerie.
Valerie, how you feeling?
I am feeling much better. Thank you, Commissioner.
Good. Okay. Go ahead, Chief.
Actually, Valerie, I think.
Oh,
Valerie
starts?
this.
Okay.
It's really Valerie's thing.
All right. So, good afternoon, Commissioners. We're here today to request approval to apply for the 2023-2024 Hazardous Materials Emergency Preparedness Grant. We come before you every year to apply for this grant. Hazardous Materials Emergency Preparedness Grant funds are provided by the United States Department of Transportation Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. That's definitely a mouthful. But basically, it's federal money that is administered by the Maryland Department of Emergency Management, or MDEM. And the idea behind this funding is to increase state and local effectiveness in safely and efficiently handling hazardous materials incidents. Excuse me. So we ordinarily apply for this grant to help fund some of our hazardous materials training initiatives across the county. We work with the hazardous materials response team to determine where I don't want to necessarily gaps in training are, but where the focus areas for training should be moving into the future for the next go round of funding, if you will. So this proposed application requests $11,900 for training initiatives. That is in cooperation with the hazmat response team. The performance period would be October 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2024. There is a 25% match for the grant request, and that works out to $2,975. So the total project is $14,875. That match is intended to be provided through previously budgeted funds as an in-kind contribution, and no additional county funds would be required for this particular initiative if you were to approve the application. And we're asking for approval to
excuse me, to submit the application and also accept the grant funds if we're awarded them. And Director Robinson is here as the subject matter expert on hazardous materials, in case you have any specific questions regarding hazardous materials training.
Okay.
I'm ready to make a motion, but I wonder if we need to make two separate ones?
Why?
Can we do both in the same? That's
What?
not a problem?
What two would you?
Well, we're accepting the grant application and then accepting the grant funds, so if we can do both, I'm happy to make that
Yeah,
motion.
we do it all.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
regular.
sometimes same.
Yeah. Nope, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I move that the Board of Commissioners approve the 2023-2024 Hazardous Materials Emergency Preparedness Grant application to MDEM, as well as accept these grant funds if awarded.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. Any discussion? Seeing here none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for being a strong
Thank you,
silent type.
Commissioners.
Yeah,
Feel better, Valerie.
I know you're busy.
Thank you.
Thanks,
That was
Valerie.
also a 5-0 vote with
That was a
Commissioner
5-0 vote. That's correct. Thank you. Okay, let's talk about debt and lease management software and consulting services. Ms. Hobbs. Maureen.
Good afternoon to both of you.
Good morning, or good afternoon. I'm still in the morning, sorry.
It's good to have a morning mindset.
Okay. The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with the Department of the Comptroller, requests your approval to contract with Fifth Asset Incorporated, doing business as DebtBook, for debt and lease management software and consulting services for a total of $75,000. DebtBook was awarded a contract through the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance that was competitively bid. This contract is effective through July 31st, 2024, and then has options to renew for an additional 2 one-year periods. DebtBook has priced the county's cost as follows. For the first year, implementation charge is free to us, so that is a savings of $5,000. The first year subscription charge is $30,000, which is a 33% discount, and the second year subscription charge would be $45,000 in FY24. For our costs for this budget year has been approved and no additional funds should be required. And I'm going to turn it over to Jenny to explain exactly what this is.
So DebtBook, how does this come about? This is actually something that was as a result of GASB, which is our Governmental Accounting Standards Board 87, that we had to implement last year due to leases. We began using this last year. This software allows our department to gather information and book the proper liabilities and accounts receivable in our financial system for the year-end financial reporting. This fiscal year, GASB came out with yet another statement, GASB 96, and it actually is called subscription, kind of fitting for this project, is a subscription. These are IT subscriptions, and with the technology constantly moving, subscriptions seem to be coming out all the time. So this is basically booking our commitment to subscriptions, future subscriptions such as this, in our financial statement. DebtBook has stayed ahead of the curve of these GASB statements and are now offering to track the subscriptions as well as the leases as another ledger, I guess, so to speak, in this. So as a result of the 22 audit, we formed a county lease committee, which encompasses all of our departments in the county. Everyone has been tasked with gathering this information and with ongoing leases, subscriptions, and DebtBook allows and gives us the ability to keep all the leases, subscriptions, and our debt all in one place. And then we do not have a limited licenses on there, so we can invite all employees if we wanted to, or everyone in the county. that's within the county payroll could log into that as a user and view that information, which is really helping the other departments manage their departments, seeing the leases. Specifically, I know facilities has a lot of leases and things. They can go in there and look at that, as well as staff in the comptroller's department can then go in and track payments received, and facilities would then be able to see that that specific lease has been paid or that commitment has been made. It also allows us to keep the documents, the actual contracts in there, as well as monitors and keeps the subscriptions and leases. You'd be able to see when some of them need to come up and they're coming due to renegotiate or go out for bid. And then also our debts in there, where I think this is going to be very helpful when we go to credit rating to get some charts and specific data, more so than what we have currently had out of Excel and things like that. So, with that, awarding the contract would allow the Department Comptroller budget to continue monitoring debt. It allows all the departments to manage their respective debt leases and subscriptions and achieve our goal of meeting GASB standards to ensure financial data is properly recorded and prevent any misstatements in audited financials. So with that, I'd like to recommend that the board moves to approve the debt book or debt lease management software and consulting services.
Motion to approve contracting with Debt Book for debt and lease management software and consulting services for a total of $75,000 for the Department of the Comptroller.
Second.
Got a motion second. Any discussion? Seeing here none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am. Okay, now let's talk about repairing a corporate hangar door. How you doing, Mark?
Fine, how are you, sir?
Every day is a good day.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. You're close enough. Close enough.
Okay, Maureen?
The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with the Airport Operations, requests your approval to retain the Trez Group for the repair of the fabric door on corporate hangar door number 2 at a cost of $68,705.89. This cost includes the labor, the materials, and the equipment. And I'll turn it over to Mark and Eric to explain about the door.
Good morning, Commissioners. We're replacing a fabric door that was installed shortly after the corporate hangars were constructed at the airport. The door was installed to facilitate a Gulfstream 4 aircraft that was based at the airport for several years. This type door widened the entranceway to the building, making the hangar more usable to the tenant. The fabric has aged in the last 20 years and has begun tearing in windstorms and needs to be replaced. It is a specific type door manufactured by Paraport Door Company. This will replace the fabric and all of the components of the doors, such as seals and stops that might need to be replaced. This is the most economical way to move forward, as a new metal door would cost approximately $200,000 or more, and actually reduce hangar functionality with a narrower opening. We are anticipating having the door replaced before thunderstorms this year with our high winds, which might facilitate or actually necessitate further costly repairs to the older fabric. The costs will be covered by the Airport Enterprise Fund.
There were some serious winds the other day.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thunderstorm season might be next week.
Okay. I'll move the Board of Commissioners approve the Trez Group for the repair of the fabric door on corporate hangar door number 2. Cost of $68,705.89.
Second.
Oh.
Got a motion in a couple seconds. Any discussion? Seeing here none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, FY24 Annual Transportation Plan. Miss Stacy Graham. With the emphasis on Graham.
It's weird, I know.
Huh?
It's weird, I know.
No, it's not weird.
It's weird. I think it's weird.
Wait, what am I missing?
Recently married.
Oh, okay.
Was Stacy Nash, now Stacy Graham.
I will always answer to Nash. Always.
Well, congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
And second of all, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. All right. I am here today regarding the annual transportation plan, which is our annual grant. I was in front of you back in January and gave you an overview of our transit system and presented the preliminary budget to you. At that time, we were submitting the first part of the grant application, and the budget was presented to use in the advertisement for the opportunity for a public hearing. No hearing was requested, so this is why this is the first time you're seeing me since January. Now the second part of the application is due, so this is the budget that we're requesting we submit to MTA as part of the grant. As I explained previously in January, public transit is funded with a mix of grant funding from FTA and MTA, as well as county funding and fare revenues collected. This preliminary budget is very similar to the one you saw in January, but there is one change. The county operating expenses have decreased, and this is because the vehicle insurance is no longer a county expense. It is going back as a contractor expense. We had made a deal with them during COVID because everything was a disaster at the time that we would cover the vehicle insurance during the base contract. So for the option years, it is now their expense to cover. Otherwise, nothing has changed on this budget, but I do want to mention again that we are still very much unsure what MTA's new allocation method is going to be and what that's going to do to our funding. So we're still requesting flat funding again for this year, just because we know what that looks like, and we will supplement the difference with the remaining COVID funds that we still have. The allocation method should increase what we receive from MTA FTA, but there's another wrinkle that I've just been aware of in the last couple of months, that with the new, the new wrinkle shouldn't affect us until FY25. But I'm just letting you know that it'll come up next year. With the census data, our urban area, because right now we have urban and rural funding, two streams of funding through FTA, and our urban area is broken into rural areas. So our urban funding will be eliminated going forward after FY24. I don't know what this is going to look like. Theoretically, our rural funding should go up. Again, I don't know. Not a problem for this year. So hopefully I'll be able to explain it better next year, because maybe I'll know. But right now, just wanted to let you know that that's coming. So that's the only big thing happening as far as that goes. So the only operating counting funding that we're requesting this year is the $305,000 required match for the $747,000 of FTA MTA funding. The second table on the briefing paper is the capital budget. This also has one very tiny change. In January, we were requesting replacement tablets, but now we are not. I took them out of the budget. Ride With Us, our transit contractor, uses Verizon as the carrier for these tablets, and Verizon is no longer going to support 3G, which is what our tablets use. So Verizon has replaced all of our tablets, which is excellent. That means we don't need to replace new ones this year. So that's the only change there. The capital funding, county funding that we are requesting is the $65,000, which is the required match percentage of all of our requests if they are granted. Chances are the final match will be less than that, because they probably will not grant us all of these requests. All of that said, I'm here for your final decision to use this budget in the submission of our grant application and accept the FY24 grant award once awarded. Any questions about the grant or our transit system in general?
Questions, comments? I know it's a lot of information that you provide, and so.
It was nice to see the decrease there with the insurance change.
Yes.
Always nice to see numbers in that sense go down. So
decreases are almost
absolutely, those are nice to see.
Well, it makes up for the increase in the bus price.
Absolutely. I'll move that the Board of Commissioners approve the submission of the FY24 annual transportation plan and accept the FY24 grant award.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any discussion, questions? Seeing here none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Okay, let's buy some trucks, maybe. Purchase of 2 Ford F-250 trucks.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I actually have some pictures in that PowerPoint.
You want this?
You have pictures of trucks? I do have a picture of trucks. Okay. Go for it.
The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with the Bureau of Fleet Management Warehouse Operations, requests your approval to purchase two 2022 Ford F-250 trucks from Bob Bell Automotive in the total amount of $127,930. Each vehicle was discounted by $5,000, and this is an off-the-lot purchase. This amount is approved in the adopted FY23 budget, and no additional funds should be necessary. And I'll turn it over to Reed.
Commissioners, the reason for the pictures is just to distinguish the fact that they are service body trucks and not regular pickup bed trucks. As Ms. Dunn had stated, the vehicles are in stock at Bob Bell, so with the board's approval, we would be able to add these to our fleet within a couple weeks. And the great news about it is that Bob Bell is including a $5,000 government concession discount per truck. So they're treating us very well, because honestly, they don't have to do that at this point. We are just a customer walking off the street. And as the background information indicates, these are two replacement vehicles for the Bureau of Utilities.
If these were green trucks, would you spray paint them white?
I would let you guys make that call.
Just
Many,
curious.
These two trucks, I mean, I'm not going to hold you a number, but these two trucks represent how many Bureau of Utility trucks do we have total? I mean, is this a substantial replacement or a drop in the bucket? If you don't have the numbers, it's okay.
Andy's here.
I believe the Bureau has 38 fleet assets. That can include vehicles and trailers, things of that nature.
Gentlemen, these two vehicles will be assigned to our Hodges facility. There's a total of 13 employees there. Each of them have an assigned truck. They are on call 24/7 for after-hours emergencies. So a well-functioning fleet is critical for their quick response to water main breaks, sewer backups, and so forth.
Do they take these home?
Some do, some do not.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I think it's rather significant that they're available. As we all know, there's a lot of issues these days with availability of things, and nice to see the $5,000 discount. So that being said, I move that the Board of Commissioners award the purchase of two 2022 Ford F-250 trucks from Bob Bell Automotive in the amount of $127,930.
Second.
Okay, can you please take down the slide?
So we can see Commissioner.
I can see Commissioner Kyler, although sometimes I don't want to see him, but that's okay in this case. Okay. I love that smile. Any discussion on this? Seeing here none. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
5-0.
There he is.
Thank you.
With Commissioner Kyler doing the thumbs up for every vote, it's taking me back to pandemic days when all the meetings were virtual, and I'm almost thinking I need to start doing that while I'm sitting here.
Okay, let's talk about the Sykesville Main Street Water and Sewer Engineering Design Project.
The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with the Bureau of Utilities, requests your approval to award a change order to Johnson Murmur, I don't know how to say that name.
Yes, Murmurin.
And Thompson. Let's call them JMT.
JMT, there you go.
In the amount of $55,402.25 for additional construction phase engineering services. The cost of this proposal is within the adopted budget and capital project. The bid amount is within the adopted budget, and no additional funds will be necessary. And I'll turn it over to Andy.
Gentlemen, as you are aware, the construction work is well underway on the Sykesville Main Street Water and Sewer Replacement Project. As expected, with the roadway as old and established as Main Street is, the underground work has become more challenging and complex as the project has continued. And it's very likely that we will need more consulting services beyond those included with the original JMT scope of work throughout the remainder of the construction activity. Some of the challenges that we've encountered to date include an unknown state highway storm drain in the vicinity of Baldwin Drive that required the redesign of the water main improvement work. And believe it or not, unknown and unmapped water and sewer lines that were not shown on any of our as-built drawings. They have since been corrected. The presence of bedrock in 3 separate locations along Main Street, somewhat anticipated, but not to the extent that we did encounter. And the very unique situation that we encountered was there was contaminated soil at the intersection of Sandusky Road and Main Street that is likely due to the one-time presence of a long since closed gasoline station that dates back to the 1970s. So that has been addressed in full too. The final challenge that we've encountered to date is we've had to replace one type of pipe material, ductile iron, with another, C900 PVC, because of long lead time issues with the ductile iron pipe. So we've sped up the overall time parameters of the project by exchanging the pipe material. So each of these matters required the review and/or approval of one or more of the following by JMT: a request for information, shop drawings, equipment data, or manufacturer's lists. With the construction work not scheduled to be completed until the end of this year, the Bureau wants to be prepared for the timely consultant review, guidance, and approval for all additional engineering needs associated with the construction activity. So this change order is not for work that's essentially being required. It's basically just in case. We do expect to have more consulting services work needed, but there's no guarantee that we will spend all the money that we're asking for. It's just to be to have in place kind of a concept as opposed to firm spending of it. So the original scope of services include the review and approval of 20 shop drawings, equipment data, and manufacturer's lists. This change order will essentially expand that to the review of up to 50 of such types of submittals. The original scope of services included the review and approval of 10 requests for information. It'll now be expanded to 20. And the original scope of services included JMT presence at 10 progress meetings. That has now been expanded to 14, as well as having their presence at 2 additional site meetings to address some of the more complicated issues that we've encountered. And thanks to my staff, this project is continuing very well, even with the challenges that we've encountered. And I fully expect it to continue in this matter through the completion of the overall project. Any questions for me?
Well, I appreciate all the work that you're doing and your team. The partnership between the town, the county, and the state in this work, is it clearly sliced up, delineated, whatever the word is, that everybody knows who's paying for what and the work being done? Is this, it's not all county.
That's correct.
So, yeah, go ahead, please.
The payment aspect is pretty clear cut.
Okay.
There's been challenges with direction and guidance from each of the 3 parties. So we've worked things out pretty well. I think we have an understanding now about scheduling techniques, letting people know what's happening. We have gone through a learning curve through the initial several months of the construction activity.
Right. Yeah, because those that are working on Main Street, i.e. my wife, is like calling me saying, is the road going to be closed or not? I was like, I don't know. So I check. But, you know, the disruption on the road on Main Street is significant. Understanding all of this activity happening is important for the community to know why there's so much disruption. Is there an end date?
The end of this calendar year, the month of December.
Month of December.
That's provided that there are no larger circumstances that are encountered.
Okay.
We have had several weekday roadway closures with state highway approval. We've let the occupants know well beforehand of that happening. There has been some misleading information given at times by the town, by their website. That has been corrected since.
Okay, good.
The closures have been essential to making the impact much smaller as far as time parameters go, but pretty intense while it was happening.
Yeah. Okay, good. And like I said, I really appreciate all the work that's being done by your team. So, move the Board of Commissioners award change order to JMT in the amount of $55,402.25 for additional construction phase engineering services.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. Is there discussion on this? Seeing here none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maureen. Chris, we have anybody on the line?
No, sir.
Okay. Is there anything for open admin that wants to be brought up?
Just going to mention that there, as usual, there are documents for you to sign afterwards. There are 2 documents for the entire board to sign if they want. Both are the written decisions of the board reflecting written decisions reflecting the board's decisions with regard to the 2 rezoning cases you heard recently.
Eldersburg LLC,
There are 2 of them in here.
there's a resolution and a decision.
Oh, it's just the Elder, I think, okay. Gotcha, I'm wrong. One's a resolution and one's a decision. That's what you do when you read quickly. On the Eldersburg LLC, so.
Anything else
All in here.
for open admin? Okay. Let's see what we got.
Good afternoon, Wanda.
We have
Good
this
afternoon.
afternoon at 1:30, open session for 4 groups to come in for 15 minutes apiece, to be held to 15 minutes apiece for information only. But until then, we go through agendas. So March 20th, Monday, March 20th, nothing scheduled. Tuesday, March 21st, Commissioner Gordon will be attending down the Reagan Room, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then he'll be joined by Commissioner Kyler at the Veterans Advisory meeting at 2 p.m. At 5 p.m., Commissioner Guerin will be attending the 22nd induction ceremony to Mountain Airy Hall of Fame, and I will be joined by Commissioner Gordon, Kyler, and Vigliotti at the Ag Center Board Annual Dinner Meeting at 5 p.m. at the Ag Center. On Wednesday, 9:45, I will be going down to the Maryland Association of Counties, and then at 11 a.m., I'll be joined by Commissioner Kyler down at Maryland Association of Counties. At 12:30 p.m., Commissioner Vigliotti will be participating in the Recreation and Parks Advisory Board meeting. And just FYI, that is a quarterly advisory board meeting that they do have. On Thursday, we go into open session at 9 a.m. At 9:15, well, I apologize. So we go into open session at 9 a.m. We will talk about FY24 Maryland Criminal Intelligence Network, or MCIN, grant application, FY24 recommended budget presentation by Mr. Zaleski, and then we'll get an update from Mr. Fowler on what's going on in Annapolis. At 1 p.m., we will
Come back.
reconvene.
Yeah.
So we will recess for a bit, reconvene at 1 p.m., continue with FY24 agency budget hearings, and that will include Department of Land Resource Management, purchase of license.
No.
Oh,
No.
oh, I apologize.
So you'll have an hour's worth of agency
hour of
that aren't
agency
listed. They're not listed.
budget hearings. Thank you. And then, after that, community solar and agricultural zone discussion and direction that we will have, and it'll be led by Mr. Hine with Chris. Purchase of license plate readers units countywide. Decision on the on the 2024 Consolidated Transportation Priority Letter. APC Symetra and cooling units. Service renewal, some IT stuff that Mr. Ripper will be presenting for purchase. We will have the discussion and decision at this point for the closure of the portion of Pinch Valley Road. That is, it's still open for comment, I believe, for another few days. I can't remember when the last
was
day is.
We left it open for 10 days.
Left it open for 10 days from last week, so.
No, it's 2 weeks ago. I think the comment
Is it
period.
2 weeks? Oh, okay.
You had the public hearing while I was gone.
Okay. Purchase of an F-250 truck, 2023 Gravel Road chip seal project, rehab of 2 sanitary sewer manhole structures, and then we will go into close for land acquisition. At 6:30 p.m., Commissioner Kyler will be attending the Finksburg Planning and Citizen Council on Thursday. Nothing scheduled Friday, Saturday, and Commissioner Vigliotti has the podcast on Sunday. On Monday, March 27th, Commissioner Vigliotti has a town hall at 6:30 p.m. at the Senior Center up there in Tawnytown. On Tuesday, we will go into open session at 9 a.m. FY24 agency budget hearings, and then in the afternoon, FY24 agency budget hearings. So the work will start. It has started. It will continue. Wednesday, March 29th, mock interview day at South Carroll High School. Commissioner Guerin will be attending or participating. And then 6 p.m., Planning and Zoning Commission work session. Commissioner Gordon will be attending virtually. 6 p.m., there's a Vietnam Veterans Day at the American Legion up in Tawnytown, where Commissioner Guerin and I will be attending.
I'll be attending that
And
too.
Commissioner Vigliotti. And then 6:30 p.m., a town hall with Commissioner Kyler, holding it at Coppermine Panther Plex facility up at Hampstead, which I believe is the old North Carroll High School. Thursday, March 30th, we will go into open session at 10 a.m.? We're going back to 10 a.m.? No.
No, it should be 9.
Okay, we will, on Thursday, March 30th, we will go into open session at 9 a.m. We will start with request bonuses for Carroll County Public Library staff, legislative update from Mr. Fowler, briefing, discussion, possible forward of comment letter to see Westminster regarding annexation number 75, Stone Chapel, LLC. And then we will have a conversation on annual leave balances from our Department of HR. At 1 p.m., we will reconvene into open session with additional FY24 agency budget hearings. On Friday, 10:30 a.m., is the 2023 Farm Museum Volunteer Recognition Ceremony. Commissioner Kyler Vigliotti and I will attend. On Saturday, Commissioner Kyler will be attending the Christian Farmers Outreach Luncheon up in Westminster at Pleasant Valley Firemen's Building. And at 5:30 p.m. is the Reese Fire Company 75th Anniversary Banquet. And right now we don't have anybody attending. I'm a tentative at that right now. So Commissioner Kyler has the podcast at 8 a.m. Or excuse me, has the podcast on Sunday, April 2nd.
April already.
Huh?
April already.
I know, it's April already. Okay. Any further discussion we have? I
do have one thing, and I apologize. Going back to item 9 of the agenda for the first week, yes. The closure of the portion of Pinch Valley Road.
Mm-hmm.
We've had quite a few discussions about this in open session, and I think I'm not alone in asking for some traffic mitigation study, some plans on how they're going to account for the closure of the road. Are we voting to close or not to close this road on this date?
That's the intent.
I'm still waiting for some of those things. I haven't received anything.
Okay, so I don't know what you've asked for, so forgive me. If, pass those things through me so I can make sure you get them is always good.
Yeah, well, it was during open session when we were discussing the issues, so.
I wasn't here. There are sort of two, forgive me. There are sort of two issues. One is what, if any, changes the board would want to fund to the road, and then the separate issue is the closure. my understanding is that I'm not arguing one way or another with regard to what you want to do with it, but that the closure of the road doesn't change the concerns of like the sharp turn and things like that, because those have been there. The road is the way the road is.
Yeah, I mean, I was tying them together
Yeah.
when I was having the discussions. So I might be alone in this, but I think we've had this discussion quite a few times.
Well, Commissioner, I think you're right. We were interested in alternative routes and traffic on different roads. So would you like to take that off the agenda and postpone the item?
We can just change it so that the staff brings
Just modify that,
information
yeah.
to you.
If they're ready to. I mean, I know this closure is years down the road, from what I understand, what we've been told. So if it's up to the staff. If they think they can do that, that's fine. But if they need more time, that's fine too.
What we can do is, what we've done in the past, a recommendation is you put discussion/decision. So if we're prepared to make a decision at that point, we can. But if not, we just have the discussion, say, okay, we're not prepared to make a decision because of X. Let's move it on down the road.
Yeah, well, I'll speak with them and see what additional information they have, and if they have it, we'll at least do that
I
part.
mean, it seems like a lot of, and maybe the ask it's a heavy lift. I mean, maybe it's, and if that's the case, they can come back to us and explain this is way more involved than you're making it out to be, Commissioner Guerin, that it's just a lot more extra work, but this is how we're going to proceed. That might be fine too.
Right, okay.
So
It's always good to ask, though. It's always good to ask.
Always, please, yes. I will get that. I'm sorry I didn't realize you were waiting.
No, that's okay. I mean, that's why that's the nice thing about going through the agenda in the weeks before. It's we can see some of these things and make adjustments. So I appreciate it. Thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Thank you, Ms. Wyndham.
And I wondered, I think throughout all the timing with Delta and with FAA on the airport, it's time that we vote on the closure, but can't we have them present what they're going to do? And I don't know if we want to amend the motion or how we want to say it, but we're voting to close the road, providing we do a traffic evaluation. I've ridden Indian Valley. If people are going to have to use that road now, something has to be done with those couple turns. And I just think, I would hope we can vote to close the road, but we have to evaluate and maintain traffic on the detour areas, or whatever you want to call them, the new alternate routes. Is that okay?
I would think it is, but there is a little thing called the budget, and it would rely on funding for those, traffic studies and mitigation efforts that the board would want to make. So it's a good time of year. You could definitely have those conversations during your budget deliberations and put money, and maybe what some of that additional information would be is costs for whatever preliminary studies would need to be done in order to determine, what the alternative paths would be, what would it take, and what would it cost to straighten out some of those bad corners, so yeah.
That's what I think I assumed was forthcoming, but I didn't think we'd have it next week. So, yeah, I concur with Commissioner Kyler's comments. He put it much more
And
succinctly
I
than
think
did.
depending on the schedule, like you said earlier, it may not be closed for 3 years. That may not be in this year's budget, but we need to say it might be in 2 years out budget, and we need to acknowledge that.
Right. Yep. Okay. Well, I'll speak with staff and we'll massage that a little bit. And if the board feels they're comfortable with making the decision that week, you can do so. And if you want to delay it, you can do so. Cool.
Okay. Good discussion. I need a motion to recess until 1:30.
Motion to recess until 1:30.
Second.
I got a motion second. Any discussion? Seeing here none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chris, let us know when we're off the air. Can you hang